Chapter 1681. She was too pleasing to the eye. Manager Himu had never seen a woman more beautiful than the Devil Master, especially her temperament. She was pure, yet enchanting, enchanting yet charming. She had the innocence of a child, yet the naivety of a young girl. They were clearly contradictory characteristics, but when they were concentrated on her, they were incomparably harmonious. Manager Himu almost couldn't move his eyes away. Although the original Amo also smiled, there was always an indescribable gloominess around her that made people feel an inexplicable sense of oppression when they were by her side. Now, however, that shadow was gone. She even had a bit of sunshine to her. Manager Himu finally remembered his mission. Devil Master, the courtyard next door, should we clear out? That person was a supreme god. He definitely wouldn't come back. The Devil Master did not find him pleasing to the eye. With that courtyard there, it was inevitable that he would be displeased. Amo's gaze swept over the courtyard. Her vision blurred, and she seemed to see him floating over. When she rubbed her eyes again, that person disappeared again. She was actually seeing things. He had been living there for the past few days. Every time she opened her eyes, she would see him. It had actually become a habit. It wasn't strange that she was seeing things. She felt inexplicably anxious. She waved her hand. I'll take care of it. You don't have to worry about it. Head steward Himu nodded and left. Imo had nothing to do, so she strolled around the courtyard next door. She paused at the door for a moment, then walked into his room. She rarely came here. Too many things had happened the last time she was here. She didn't have time to see the layout. Now that she had the time and the mood, she casually glanced around. The layout of the room was low-key yet grand. Whether it was the screen with the fox painting or the small jade ornaments on the table, all of them showed the owner's taste. His taste and taste were extraordinarily elegant. She vaguely felt that the layout here was familiar. Even the gums behind the screen looked familiar. It was as if she had lived in a place like this before. She walked over and sat on the gums. In a daze, she seemed to see a man and a woman rolling on the gums and kissing. The kiss was so passionate that she almost wanted to go to bed. Hey girl, you still haven't given me an explanation. I don't want to have an unclear relationship with you. The woman finally pushed the man away. Shuama, hurry up and level up. The man's voice was hoarse, as if he was holding something back. Finally, he let go of the woman. The woman turned around and sat up. Her face was as red as rouge. All right. You should leave quickly. My small temple can't accommodate a big bodhisattva like you. Then how about you go to my main hall? My temple is big enough to accommodate you. Go to your main hall. All right, give me a corresponding position. The temple is so big, it shouldn't be a problem for me to sit next to you, right? The woman giggled, almost hanging on the man's arm. The intimacy between them was obvious. It depends on your performance. The man replied to her and raised his hand to rub her head. I will definitely rise to level 8 within 2 years. The woman was full of confidence. Let's wait and see. Amo's heart skipped a beat. The hand that was stroking the gums trembled, and the illusion disappeared. The man just now should be shunned, Julie. And the woman looked like herself. She subconsciously touched her face again. That woman's appearance was almost exactly the same as her current appearance. Chapter 1682. The only difference was the cinnabar mole on her forehead. Shuama's cinnabar mole was in the shape of a snowflake, while hers was in the shape of a cloud. Shuama. Could it be that her name was Shuama before she was reborn? She actually had such a deep entanglement with Shunjuli, and the layout of this house was really similar to the layout of the side hall she saw in the illusion. In other words, this house was decorated according to Shuama's original residence. It seemed that he was very infatuated with Shuama, and Shuama's love for him was also very obvious. But why did they separate? She suddenly felt a little flustered. She didn't know why, but whenever she thought about what happened before she was reborn, she subconsciously wanted to escape, as if there was a terrible thing hidden in it that she had to forget at all costs. She touched her chest with her fingers and could feel a magic seal there. It should be a memory that was sealed. The memory that made her use this kind of magic to seal must not be a good memory. She better not think about it. She didn't want to make things difficult for herself. And to break this seal, she had to pay a huge price. It would take her 3/4 of her magic power. It wasn't worth it. She didn't want to think about it anymore. She stood up and looked at everything in the room. It seemed to be filled with the aura of Shun Julie and Xiuma, which made her feel a little uncomfortable. She waved her sleeve, and a red light flashed. Everything in the room disappeared. She had directly moved it to another dimension. The room was empty. She couldn't see anything anymore. There was no aura that he used to live here. She sighed slightly and walked out of the room. She saw the heavenly fire flower blooming in the flower bed. It stood there alone, with layers of petals stretched out and swaying in the breeze. IMO bent her fingers. She subconsciously wanted to destroy the flower that he had personally planted here. Suddenly, the image of him desperately protecting this flower flashed in her mind. Her fingertips stiffened, and she couldn't cast a magic spell. Forget it. It's just a flower. It doesn't matter if it grows here. There's no need to destroy it so cleanly. Whether it lives or dies depends on its luck. She turned and walked out. The swing was still the same swing, and the grass was still the same grass. IMO swung gently on the swing. Not far away, the children were still playing. Everything returned to normal. Everything seemed to have returned to the beginning. The only thing that had changed was her state of mind, and of course, her appearance. She looked at the children and suddenly felt a little irritated. She missed little Nianma. Time flowed like water. It had been more than 2 months since Shun Julie brought the children back to Brahma Palace. Since that time, she hadn't seen them even once. In the past 2 months, she had participated in the Flower Appreciation Festival organized by the Celestial World. She was the Devil Master, so of course she was invited. Now the 4 seas are at peace, and the 6 realms are at peace. The Flower Appreciation Banquet held in the Immortal World was just a way to bond with each other, just like the cocktail parties held by the upper class in modern times. The Flower Appreciation Festival was extraordinarily grand. The leaders of the 6 realms gave the Immortal Realm a lot of face, and almost all of them attended. Originally, IMO wasn't interested in these kinds of invitations. She had received all kinds of invitations before, but she had rejected them all without hesitation. However, this time, she was probably too bored, so she unexpectedly agreed to attend. She thought that she would meet Shun Julie and his son at the Flower Appreciation Festival. Chapter 1683. Of course, she did not expect to meet Shun Julie. Both of them were born to be enemies. It was already fortunate that they did not fight when they met. It was better for them to meet as little as possible. She mainly missed little Nianma. The little guy had only been with her for slightly more than a month, but she could not let go of him. When she slept at night, she thought that the pillow next to her was him and hugged it in her arms. After all, the pillow was dead, so she could not feel it. She even had insomnia several times because of this. General Manager Heimu was a very considerate person. He actually got her a child who was about the same age as Nianma. The child looked very cute, but when she hugged the child, she could not feel the same way as when she hugged little Nianma. There was a strong sense of strangeness. She felt very awkward when she hugged the child, so she asked General Manager Heimu to send the child away. General Manager Heimu did not give up. He searched everywhere for such a small child and sent it to her so that she could feel it again. However, she did not feel it. Instead, she became more and more annoyed. In the end, she scolded General Manager Heimu and finally stopped him from sending the child away. She thought that she was just not used to it. Time was the best medicine to cure everything. As time went by, she would probably get used to it. However, she did not expect that she was getting more and more uncomfortable. In the end, she finally admitted that she missed her child. She missed little Nianma. There were a few times when she wanted to go to Fanteon Palace, but when she thought of the harsh words she said before she left, she did not want to go anymore. Since she had already gone her separate ways with that person, what was the point of always thinking about his child? She did not see little Nianma at the Flower Appreciation Festival because Shun Julie did not go at all. She knew from the little immortals that the gate of Fanteon Palace had been closed for the past 2 months. Even when the Celestial Emperor personally came to visit, He did not see anyone. The gate was not even open. If it were not for the faint white light emitted by the Divine Lord living in Fantion Palace, the Celestial Emperor would have thought that the Divine Lord had run away with her son. Of course, the Celestial Emperor wanted to invite the Divine Lord to this Flower Appreciation Festival, but she did not give him face at all. Since Imo did not see little Nianma, he felt that the Flower Appreciation Festival was rather boring. Hence, he went back after hanging around for a while. In the blink of an eye, another half a month had passed. She felt that her longing for little Nianma was increasing day by day. She could not bring herself to do anything. Reporting to the Devil Master, the Demon King has come to visit. Chief Steward Himu reported to her. Let him in, Imo ordered. The Demon King was naturally Shuilan. His red robe was like a raging fire. When he stood there, he looked like a big red flower blooming on the grass. It was quite refreshing. Recently, he often visited Mo Palace and had already become a frequent visitor. When it came to talking, he was very good at grasping the boundaries. When he saw that Imo was getting impatient, he would take the initiative to leave. He would not bother her, and he would not come every day. Basically, he would come every 3 to 5 days. He had a lot of skills. He played the guqin well, and he knew how to behave. He was also humorous and witty. He often told her some interesting things that happened in the 6 realms recently. It helped her a lot to relieve her loneliness. Shuilan came in with a happy face. When he saw Gu Shijio sitting on the swing, he smiled. Momo, are you bored? Let's go out and have some fun, shall we? Imo paused on the swing. She seemed to have been a little more indoors recently. Chapter 1684. Imo paused on the swing. She did seem to be staying at home recently. It was good to go out and play. If she didn't go out soon, she felt like she would be bored out of her wits. Okay. She jumped down from the swing. Where are we going? How about the human world? Shuilan suggested. Imo frowned and subconsciously shook her head. No, she didn't know why, but she had some resistance to the human world. Then go to our demon world? Recently, the flowers in the demonic pond suddenly bloomed. They're very beautiful. Hey, don't the flowers in the pond only bloom once every 1,000 years? I heard that they bloomed once 3 years ago. Why are they blooming again now? There must be something wrong. Devil Master, we're demons to begin with. Maybe they bloomed earlier under the nourishment of your magic power? Shuilan's smile was even more seductive than the flowers. Why don't we go take a look? Maybe they'll feel your aura and bloom even more fiercely. Shuilan, you've become much smoother recently. Imo glanced at him from the corner of her eyes. Shuilan looked at her with a smile, his eyes flashing. No, it's not smooth talking. It's my sincerity to the Devil Master. How about it? Do you want to go? Let's go. Imo was straightforward. She wanted to see how beautiful the flowers that didn't bloom according to the rules were. Shuilan's eyes immediately curved. He bowed and extended his hand towards her. How about letting this little Wong lead the way for Devil Master? He acted like a servant asking the Empress Dowager to rise. Imo burst out laughing. A smile to topple a city, another smile to topple a country. Shuilan looked at her and couldn't help but recite 2 lines of a poem. Imo faintly felt that the 2 lines of the poem were familiar. She asked, you know how to drop books. Where did you learn them? Learn from you. Shuilan subconsciously blurted out these 2 words. Just as he was about to say, learn from you, he suddenly remembered something and changed his words. It's very normal to learn from you. As for these 2 lines of poetry, I accidentally came across them. All right, let's go. If we're late, the flower might have wilted. Just as he said this, a commotion suddenly came from the front yard. In the distance, a huge creature swooped down toward Mo Palace. Imo raised his head subconsciously. When he saw the huge creature, his expression changed. The behemoth was the size of a house and looked like a pig without a head. It had 2 pairs of fleshy wings, and its entire body was pink. It looked extremely strange. Primordial beast, chaos. At this moment, the guards in Mo Palace were already alarmed. Seeing that primal chaos was charging towards Mo Palace with the force of a thunderbolt, they all flew up to stop it. Some used their magic treasures, some used their spells, and some used their weapons. It smashed toward the primal chaos. Hundun did not slow down at all. There seemed to be a protective shield around its body. All the magic treasures, spells, and weapons bounced off before they could even touch its body. It was extraordinarily powerful. General Manager Himu's expression changed. He was about to mobilize the troops. Imo raised her hand. "Pass down my order. Don't attack. Let it in." She recognized Hundun. She had seen it in Fanteon Palace before. However, at that time, it was only a stone statue and had not been activated. Although head steward Himu was worried, he still obeyed her words and sent a signal to her. Only then did the guards open a path for Hundun. Almost in the blink of an eye, Hundun arrived at the back garden. It folded its wings and landed. Imo's heart thumped wildly. He looked up. "Mother!" A tender voice sounded from Hundun's back. Following the voice, a boy flew down and pounced directly at Imo. Chapter 1685. Nianma. Imo immediately hugged him. As soon as the soft little body was in her arms, Imo's heart beat wildly, as if it had fallen into a warm pool of water. She was indescribably satisfied. That child was Shin Nianma. She had not seen him for nearly 3 months, and he had grown a lot. He used to look like a 1-year-old, but now he looked like a 3-year-old. His black hair was hanging down, and his little lips were red. His eyes were bright, and he was in high spirits, especially his red robe, which was as dazzling as the fire. He looked like a red boy in a painting. Imo could not help but raise her hand to touch his arms and legs. She felt that the little guy had become much stronger. The little guy used to be made of crystal. Although it was beautiful, it was easy to break. Now, it seemed to be made of white jade. His skin was delicate, smooth, and strong. "Mother, I missed you so much." Shin Nianma probably missed her very much. As soon as he was in her arms, he generously kissed Imo on the face. When she hugged the little guy again, all the gloominess in Imo's heart was swept away. She also kissed her son on the face. "Mother missed you too." The mother and son pair were being affectionate, leaving Shui Ilan hanging to the side. Shui Ilan looked at the scene in silence. He looked at Shin Nianma and did not know what to say for a moment. It was the first time he saw Shin Nianma. The last time they met, this kid was still in the stone. Shin Nianma looked like his father. He was almost a copy of Shun Julie's appearance, but their personalities were poles apart. "Mother, you have become much prettier." Shin Nianma looked at his mother carefully with his big eyes. It was the first time he saw his mother as a grown-up, but it was not strange because she looked closer to the person that his father had painted. The little guy was very sweet. Imo could not help but rub his head. "You have grown a lot, too." She then looked at Hundun, who had become smaller not far away. "You can even control it." "Of course, mother. I have all the 8 mythological beasts, and they all listen to me." Shin Nianma was proud. Imo's eyes flickered. It had only been 3 months since they last saw each other, but the little fellow's skills had simply increased by leaps and bounds. Just now, when he leaped into the air, it was already a strength that even the experts of the immortal world might not be able to achieve. Shui Ilan, who had been ignored for a long time, finally spoke. "Imo, why don't we go out and play together?" "I'm not going." Imo refused without hesitation. His eyes were still fixed on Shin Nianma's face. Shui Ilan was speechless. He paused for a moment and said, "Do you miss Nianma? We can bring him along. He's a boy, and he's been cooped up in Fanteon Palace all this time. Now that he's finally out, do you want him to be cooped up in Fanteon Palace? It's better for children to go out and see more." Imo immediately asked his son, "Nianma, do you want to go out and play?" Shin Nianma looked at her and then looked at Shui Ilan. His eyes flashed. "Nianma wants to go out. However, I only want to go out with my mother. I don't want anyone else." Shui Ilan's lips twitched. He faintly felt that something was wrong. When he was about to speak, Imo had already waved at him. "Shui Ilan, go and see the demonic flowers by yourself." He lowered his head and asked his son, "Where do you want to go?" "The mortal world." Shin Nianma answered with 2 words. "Good. Then, let's go to the mortal world." Shui Ilan was speechless. Devil Lord, can you have some integrity? You can't have a son, and everything will be fine. He was about to remind Amo, but unexpectedly, the little boy in her arms glanced at him with his big eyes and asked very innocently, Mother, why is this uncle still here? Chapter 1686. So, Amo also looked at him and asked with some surprise, Do you still have something to do? Haven't you left yet? Shwe Elon, he dryly exhorted. Then you should be careful and have fun. Then he left with a little heart that was almost hurt. His back looked a little bleak. In the boundless mortal world, everyone was busy. The streets were paved with blue stones, rows of buildings, hawkers, and pedestrians hurriedly walked along the street. It was different from the high and mighty celestial world, and also different from the unrestrained prosperity of the Devil Kingdom. This place was more down to earth. Imo and Shunyama walked on the street. Everything around them seemed familiar yet strange. Hundun had turned into the shape of a little pig and swaggered beside Shunyama. From time to time, it attracted the attention of others. In the city where they came from, there were many pet beasts, but most of them were ferocious beasts such as wolves, bears, tigers, and leopards. Each one was more majestic than the other. Only the mother and daughter were accompanied by a miniature version of a little pig. The mother and daughter were very good-looking. With such a little pig beside them, the number of people who turned to look at them was 100%. Many people were stunned by them. Some even began to follow them from afar. Soon, people found that the little pig was different. The little pig was more delicate than the ordinary pigs. It had double eyelids, big eyes, and long eyelashes. When it looked at people, it even blinked. This little pig was very arrogant. It raised its head high, and even its little tail, which was supposed to be a question mark, stood up like an antenna. What was more strange was that when the ferocious beasts passed by with their masters, saw the pig, their bodies trembled like sifting chaff. They were almost paralyzed on the spot, and their masters could not pull them up. It wasn't until the mother and daughter pair and the piglet had gone far away that those ferocious beasts struggled to get up in fear. However, they no longer dared to walk in the same direction. Almost all of them turned around and ran back. For a moment, there was quite a bit of chaos on the street. Shinyinma certainly knew that it was caused by Hundun. He patted the little pig's head and said, Little Zhu, keep a low profile. Hundun was crying. It was a dignified mythological beast, but it had turned into a pig. Was it not low-key enough? However, since it was the little master's order, it naturally had to obey unconditionally. Thus, it lowered its tail that was raised high and deliberately coiled it into a question mark. It blinked its eyes and asked, Like this? Shinyama nodded. Yes, I feel much better. Imo raised his hand and rubbed his eyebrows. A mythological beast that could turn the world upside down was as obedient as a kitten in front of Shinyama. She had already talked to Shinyama. She knew that he had been diligently cultivating in the Fanteon Palace for the past 3 months. He would wake up in the morning and memorize books for 2 hours. After memorizing the books, he would go to cultivate. In the afternoon or at night, he would wake up a mythological beast. Not only that, he also had to master the key points of raising the mythological beasts and make them truly obey him. Little Nyenma had been very busy for the past 3 months. This was because these divine beasts all had their own bad tempers. Some of them were full of childlike innocence, such as this Hundun. Some were tall and mighty, such as Cheongchi. There were also those who smiled and pretended to be very talented, but were actually full of evil tricks, such as Lao Ai. Little Nyenma had to guide them according to their temperament to truly control them. Shenjili was very strict with him. Every day, he personally supervised him to practice. He could not be careless. After all, children were playful. Sometimes, when little Nyenma was tired of practicing, he would throw a tantrum and slack off. Chapter 1687. After all, children were playful. Sometimes, when little Nyenma was tired of practicing, he would throw a tantrum and slack off. As long as Shun Juli saw it, he would be severely punished. Every punishment was a painful experience for little Nyenma. He would remember it for a few days after each punishment. Gradually, he did not dare to slack off. Naturally, little Nianma was resentful. He felt that his father was not like his father, but more like a perverted master. He deeply felt that his father was too eager for quick success. It was as if he wanted to squeeze all the knowledge into his little brain in a very short time. It was a typical force-feeding education. Little Nianma was actually very dissatisfied, but he was too weak to fight against his father. Therefore, he could only follow his father's education step by step. Fortunately, although Shan Juli was very strict with his practice, he took good care of him in daily life. He made delicious food for him. Seeing that his father, a divine lord, had to personally make soup for him, little Nianma felt that his father's strictness was actually forgivable. Little Nianma was still a child. When he slept at night, he still wanted to be accompanied by someone, just like his mother. However, Shan Juli probably wanted to train his independence, so he gave him a separate hall and let him sleep alone in the hall. At first, little Nianma was not used to it. He often got up in the middle of the night and ran to his father's hall. However, the door of his father's hall was closed, and there was a wizardry barrier on it. Little Nianma used all his strength to open it, but he could not. He was so anxious that he hit and scratched outside and cried. However, it was useless on Shan Juli. He cried until his voice was hoarse, but his father would not open the door for him. He could only sob and go back to his big bed to sleep. Strangely, no matter how hoarse his voice was, it could be recovered the next day. His voice was as clear as a lark. Sometimes, in a daze, he seemed to feel that his father was sitting beside him. One of his hands was rubbing his soft hair, as if he was looking at him and protecting him. It made him feel very warm and cozy. He wanted to open his eyes to take a look, but he couldn't, so he fell asleep again. When he woke up, he could not find any trace of his father's presence. Therefore, little Nianma thought that he must be dreaming. It was precisely because of Shan Juli's strict education that little Nianma seemed to have been reborn in the past 3 months. He had become more responsible and cunning. Naturally, little Nianma missed his mother very much. More than once, he talked about it in front of Shan Juli, and Shan Juli promised him that he would be able to look for his mother once he awakened the 8 mythological beasts. This condition was like a cardiac stimulant. Little Nianma practiced diligently as if he had been injected with chicken blood. Shan Juli did not have to worry about him anymore. The 8 mythological beasts required special skills to be awakened. Therefore, when little Nianma was able to awaken all the mythological beasts, his kung fu must have reached a certain level. Ordinary people couldn't even get close to him. Therefore, when little Nianma awakened and tamed the last mythical beast, Shan Juli finally gave him a long vacation. He gave him a month's time to reunite with his mother. This was all little Nianma's experience in the past 3 months. Along the way, little Nianma told Gu Shijie everything that had happened to him. He was so happy that he told her everything that had happened to him. The focus of interest of a little boy was naturally different from that of an adult. Chapter 1688. The little boy's interests were naturally different from the adults. He focused on the exciting experience of taming the mythological beasts. Among the 8 mythological beasts, Qiongqi was the most humane and honest one. Therefore, when Shin Nianma woke it up, it immediately recognized him as its master and did not give him any problems. However, the other mythological beasts were not so obedient. After they were awakened, a few of them were not convinced at all and even gave him problems. Fortunately, Shin Nianma was smart and gradually learned from the experience. Finally, he gradually tamed these mythological beasts and made them his most powerful guards. The little thing was very talkative. He kept talking in front of Imo. Imo held his hand and walked leisurely on the street while listening to him talk. Suddenly, she felt that it was very warm. The only person she missed these days was little Nianma. Now, he was finally by her side. He was so lively and cute. Logically speaking, she should be very satisfied. However, she did not know why she felt a little lost in her heart, as if something was missing. "Mother, father allowed me to stay with you for a month." Little Nianma's eyes were curved. Obviously, he was very happy. IMO looked at him and finally could not help but say, "You are so young. How can Father allow you to fly across so many levels by yourself? Aren't you afraid of getting lost on the way?" That person was too irresponsible. Her MO palace was on the 3rd level, but Fantion Palace was on the 36th level. The distance was thousands of mountains and rivers. When she went to Fantion Palace, she could not get there so quickly if she did not use a very special space travel method. The special space travel method required a very strong telekinesis to be realized. It was absolutely impossible to do without the power of level 3 of the heaven level. Although little Nianma was the son of God and was born with amazing telekinesis, he had only reached level 9 of the earth level. Although he was riding on Hun Dun, the power of the mount generally depended on the master's telekinesis. In other words, the level of the master's telekinesis was proportional to the power of the mount. Although Hun Dun was a mythological beast, its current power was only 20% to 30%. After all, it had just been awakened, and its blood was not completely flowing. The power of the mythological beast was also greatly reduced. Little Nianma rode on Hun Dun for a long and bumpy journey to get here. Every level of heaven had some uncertain variables and unseen difficulties. Was it really not dangerous for such a young child to travel alone? Shinjili was too lax. Amo's heart was filled with dissatisfaction. His tone was filled with anger and condemnation. Little Nianma did not take it to heart. "It's all right, mother. My kung fu is quite good now. The scenery along the way was not bad, and we did not encounter any danger. I wanted my father to come along as well, so that he could visit my mother. However, he said that the single plank bridge and the broad road were different. He also said that he needed to practice his kung fu, so he asked Nianma to come alone." "IMO," she sneered her heart. It seemed like that person had remembered the words she said before she left. From the looks of it, he had finally given up and stopped bothering her. Then she could finally be at ease. She did not have to worry that he would use little Nianma as a link to get entangled with her. This man was indeed the Divine Lord. She seemed to be relieved. "Let's go, Nianma. Mother will bring you to a good meal." Chapter 1689. It was a restaurant. It was lunchtime, and there were many people in the restaurant. This restaurant was different from what IMO remembered. She remembered that there were private rooms on the 2nd floor of a high-end restaurant. However, when she held Nianma's hand and walked up the stairs, she realized that it was still a hall. There were rows of tables and chairs in the hall. It was not different from the 1st floor, and there were still many customers. IMO frowned slightly. She only wanted to be alone with her son now. She raised her hand to call the waiter and asked for a private room. The waiter was confused. "Sir, what is a private room?" IMO's veins on her forehead twitched, and she had to teach him about private rooms. The waiter shook his head like a rattle drum. "Sir, there is no such thing as a private room in the Qinghua Kingdom. We treat all customers equally. It is the same for any restaurant." He then looked at IMO from head to toe. "Sir, you are not from the Qinghua Kingdom, are you?" At this moment, IMO did not want to be too conspicuous, so she used a spell on herself and Nianma to hide their true appearances. Now, what appeared in front of the public was only an ordinary beauty and a beautiful boy. They did not look any different from the ordinary people here. IMO rubbed her eyebrows and waved her hand. "Forget it. Find us a more secluded table." It was easy to find a secluded table because the people of the Qinghua Kingdom liked to show off. They liked to sit in places where there were many people. Therefore, a secluded table would always be the last to be occupied unless there was a special situation. The waiter brought the menu, and IMO let little Nianma order. Today, the little guy was the apple of her eye. Everything was based on his happiness. Little Nianma did not hesitate and ordered a lot of delicacies. Needless to say, the little guy was very considerate. He ordered a few dishes that IMO liked. IMO realized that little Nianma had become more sensible. When they were about to sit, the little guy not only pulled out a chair for her in advance, but also used a cleaning spell to clean everything before letting his mother sit. When they were eating, he even put the dishes that she liked to eat closer to her. Imo could not help but smile when she saw how busy he was. She raised her hand and patted his head. Nyenma, I should be the one taking care of you now. No, my father taught me that a man is born to take care of a woman, especially the woman closest to him. Therefore, I should take care of my mother. The woman closest to me is my mother. The chopsticks in Mo's hand paused. He did not expect the supreme divinity to be such a sentimental person. She looked at the dishes on the table and realized that most of them were her favorites. It seemed that little Nyenma's taste was similar to hers. She tasted a few mouthfuls and felt that although the appearance of the dish was not bad, the taste did not seem right. Little Nyenma frowned after a few mouthfuls of food. The food here is far from what my father used to cook. Every time he tasted something, he would comment on it. For example, this one was too salty, that one was too bland, and this one had too much seasoning. Imo looked at the dishes that little Nyenma had tasted. They were all her favorite dishes. Looking at little Nyenma's situation, it seemed that when he was in the Fantion Palace, Shunjuli often cooked these dishes for him. She was absent-minded and recalled the days when Shunjuli first came to the Mo Palace. In addition to sending her flowers, he also showed off his cooking skills several times and made several kinds of delicacies for her. Chapter 1690. She tried her best to embarrass him and drive him away. Not only did she throw away the flowers that he gave her, but she also threw away the dishes that he cooked. She did not even try them. Later, he probably knew that it was useless to cook for her, so he did not cook for her anymore. Judging from little Nyenma's reaction, the dishes that Shunjuli cooked were quite delicious. Could it be better than the chefs in Mo Palace? Of course, this thought only flashed through Mo's mind, and she did not take it to heart. Since she did not like it, she would just eat less. By the way, Mother, you are very familiar with the layout of the restaurant. Have you been here before? Mo was slightly stunned. Ever since she came to this continent, she had never been to the human world. However, she seemed to be born with some of the rules and layout of the human world. Needless to say, it was related to her reincarnation. After all, when she was reincarnated as Ning Shuama, she was 100% human. She had sealed that part of her memory, but she did not expect that some of the habits in her bones had not been completely forgotten. Hence, it became an instinct. She smiled and did not answer her son. Instead, she peeled an egg for him to stop him from continuing to ask. Luer, I heard that Mount Jai in the south of the city has been smoking recently. The smoke is very strange. Is it purple? Yes, it is indeed smoking. The smoke is coming out in a circle. The shape is quite beautiful. Why do you think it is smoking? How would I know? I only saw it from afar. There were two new guests sitting at the table next to them. They were talking about the latest gossip. A smoking mountain. Could it be that the volcano was about to erupt? This was the first thought that came to Mo's mind. She was also a little puzzled. Had the people here not heard of active volcanoes? She did not know how far Mount Jai was from the city. If it was very close, she was afraid that the people in the city would be affected. Uncles, is Mount Jai far from here? Little Nyenma, who was sitting next to them, asked. It is not far. It is only about 40 to 50 miles away. One of them answered. Little guy, the mountain is a bit dangerous. It is not a place where people can go. The other person also spoke, but he suddenly stopped. And where did they go? The mother and daughter at the table had disappeared, leaving only a silver ingot on the table as payment for the meal. Mount Jai wasn't very tall. It was only about 300 to 400 zhang tall. However, the mountain range was vast and winding, with no end in sight. The main peak was shaped like Mount Fuji. It was conical and looked like a typical volcano. This volcano probably hadn't erupted for tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years. The surrounding vegetation was abnormally lush. There were many trees on the mountain, and some of them were even ancient living fossils. For example, some of them were extremely thick and old. Even if a dozen people held hands, they might not be able to encircle all of them. The people in this country were probably very lazy, or perhaps they had a strong environmental awareness. Basically, no one touched the vegetation in the mountains. They were all growing in their original state. Deep in the mountains and dense forests, There were bound to be all kinds of animals, and this place was no exception. From time to time, the figures of animals would flash by in the forest. IMO and Shin Yimar rode on Hundun's back and hovered in the air. They looked down at the mountain below. Indeed, there were plumes of purple smoke rising from the mountaintop, just as that person had described. Every wisp of purple smoke rose in a spiral, thin at the bottom and thick at the top. From afar, it looked like a purple mushroom cloud. Plumes of smoke rose from the 8 directions of the mountain, looking like erected totem poles. Chapter 1691. It did not look like a volcano was about to erupt. The smoke did not look like it, either. IMO frowned and stared at the purple smoke. She had a very strong sixth sense. At this moment, when she saw the smoke column, she faintly felt that something was not right. Shin Yinma also pursed his lips. It is not a volcano eruption. I thought I could take the opportunity to practice the fire spell here. The magma during the volcanic eruption contained a very high amount of energy. If he used this energy to practice, he could achieve twice the result with half the effort. His father had told him about some of the symptoms before the volcanic eruption, but it was completely different from what he saw. However, what was this purple smoke? It looked very strange. Shin Yinma was at the age where he was not afraid of tigers. He was very curious by nature. He pulled Mo's sleeve. "Mother, shall we go down and take a look?" Mo looked at the purple smoke. It was so bright, but it gave a very gloomy feeling. It was as if something terrible was hidden in it. However, she looked at the smoke for a long time. Her eyes were like X-rays as she looked at the smoke back and forth several times. She did not find anything hidden in it. It was just pure smoke. After the smoke rose into the sky, it slowly spread around and covered a small part of the forest. She took a closer look at the forest again. The forest was still lush with leaves, and the animals didn't run out in a panic either. It seemed that the smoke was just an ordinary cloud. There was nothing wrong with it. No matter what era it was, animals living in the forest were the most sensitive. They could always accurately detect danger in time and quickly respond before the danger came. Now that the animals did not show any signs of anxiety, did it mean that the purple smoke was actually not dangerous? "Mother," Shin Yinma tugged at her sleeve. "Okay, let's go down. However, when we go down, you have to listen to everything I say. Don't run around, and don't make your own decisions." Mo's voice was unprecedentedly strict. "Okay, I won't run around," Shin Yinma promised. Mo waved her hand and let Shin Yinma command Hun Dun to fly down. Although Mo was straightforward, she was still very cautious when the enemy's situation was unknown. She and Shin Yinma did not directly rush into the purple smoke. Instead, they landed on the periphery of the forest that was shrouded in purple smoke. After landing, he realized that the trees here were extremely tall, and there were thorns and vines between the trees. There were no traces of human activity at all. The weeds were about 5 feet tall. Shin Yinma was buried in the weeds as soon as he landed. Not even his shadow could be found. "Mother, what are we doing here?" Little Yinma pushed the weeds in front of him away and looked at the forest with difficulty. "Observe," Mo answered him with 2 words. She pondered for a moment and added, "Yinma, don't be reckless no matter what. You have to observe the situation first before you decide what to do. Don't just rush in and do it recklessly. This way, you won't be at a disadvantage and take the wrong path." She took the opportunity to educate him. "Yes." Shin Yinma nodded and looked at his mother with his big eyes. "Mother, you know so much." Mo rubbed his head again, but a strange look flashed through his eyes. This knowledge was obviously not summed up when she was a devil lord. It was as if it came from her bones. Once she encountered a situation, she would naturally have this kind of reaction. Mo grabbed his hand. "I'll take you in." Chapter 1692. Both mother and daughter stepped on the dead branches and leaves as they moved forward. Both of them were highly skilled in kung fu. Although there were many thorns in the forest, it was not a problem for them. They were basically gliding on the grass. Mo obviously had a lot of experience in surviving in the wild. Whether it was the way to pick the thorns or the way to move forward, she was very professional. She did not even use any psychokinesis. She only relied on her qigong to get rid of all the obstacles easily. Her every move was clean and neat. Shen Yinma's eyes were shining with excitement. He liked his mother like this. In the past, his mother always had a gloomy aura, which was a little scary. Now, the gloomy aura seemed to be gradually disappearing. His mother now looked more like the mother in his father's painting. His mother used to be indifferent to everything, but now she began to care about the people. More than once, he had heard from his father about some of the things his mother had done. He knew that she used to be cold on the outside, but warm on the inside. She was willing to sacrifice herself for her friends. Although she used to be a good-for-nothing, she worked hard to improve herself. She didn't shrink back in the face of any difficulties. To be honest, he liked his mother, who was full of vitality and a sense of justice. Now, his mother seemed to have finally begun to return. When his mother heard the conversation between the two people, she thought that a volcano was about to erupt. Therefore, she did not even think about it and brought him along to see what was going on. While little Nianma was lost in his thoughts, his mother suddenly pulled him to hide behind a tree. There was a noise in the depths of the forest. First, a deer rushed out, and then a bear was chasing after it. It was a very ordinary scene of wild animals hunting for food. There was nothing special about it. Little Nianma yawned and looked at his mother, only to find that Imo was staring at the two beasts. She frowned slightly and seemed to have found something wrong. Therefore, little Nianma turned around to take a look again. His eyes widened with interest. At a time of life and death, even a rabbit would bite, let alone a deer. The deer was probably anxious because it turned around and hit the bear like a small cannonball. The deer and the bear were fighting there. Look at their eyes. Amo's voice came into little Nianma's ears. Sure enough, little Nianma looked at the eyes of the two beasts. They all had purple eyes. That purple color looked dazzling, but it was filled with an aura of death. The white of the eyes and the eyeballs could not be seen. They had completely merged into one. What happened next was even stranger. The bear was strong and had sharp teeth. No matter how hard the deer tried, it was no match for it. Soon its neck was bitten off. Logically speaking, at this point, the deer should be dead, but unexpectedly, it was still kicking its forehooves. Its severed head was even trying to jump up and bite the bear's ear. It was too strange. Little Nianma widened his eyes in surprise. The beast in the human world was too strong. Beside him, Imo had a thought and pinched his fingers. A tree branch shot out and pierced through the bear's head. The bear howled in pain. Even though its head was pierced, it did not die. Instead, it charged towards the back of the tree. Hun Dun, who had been hiding beside little Nianma, rushed forward excitedly and was about to reveal its true form. Little Nianma grabbed its tail. Don't eat it. This bear is weird. Imo patted little Nianma's head to show his appreciation. Then, he threw out countless branches. Chapter 1693. The great devil's hidden weapon was not something that the bear could avoid. In the blink of an eye, the bear was pierced like a hedgehog. All the major acupuncture points on its body were full of branches. If it were an ordinary bear, it would have died long ago. However, the bear was very strong and did not want to fall. Like an oversized green hedgehog, it rushed to Imo and opened its mouth to bite her. The deer's head was still hanging on its ear, and the deer's mouth was still biting it. Imo swung her sword, and the bear's head flew away. The bear was the same as the deer. Its head was separated from its body, but it still stared at its enemy. The bear's head jumped on the ground a few times, and it still wanted to bite Imo. Imo frowned. Rest. She raised her hand, and a red light was emitted. The bear and the deer disappeared. Mother, what is going on? Little Nianma was frightened. He was not afraid of the bear, but he was frightened by its desperate spirit. This purple smoke is strange. Imo raised her hand and covered her son and the chaos with a wizardry barrier. Follow me closely. I will check again. Imo was naturally fast. She quickly checked the inside and outside of the jungle with her son and found a very serious problem. In the places where the purple smoke covered, the animals had mutated. They had purple eyes, were fierce, and were bloodthirsty. Even if they were beheaded, they would still stare at their enemy. In the places where the purple smoke did not cover, the animals were normal, and there was nothing wrong with them. After careful observation, she found that even the plants in the places where the purple smoke covered had mutated. Strands of purple were extending down from the top of the canopy. The trees were also much taller than the trees in other places. It seemed that their growth rate had increased. If animals and plants were like this, what about people? Just as Amo was thinking about this, she saw two people running out from the depths of the jungle. Both of them were dressed as Taoist priests. It seemed that they had heard the news about the purple smoke and came to check it out. One of them was obviously affected by the purple smoke. His eyes were dark purple, and the eyeballs were not visible. The way he ran was like a zombie. He jumped a few feet, and he was chasing the other one. The other one, on the other hand, was quite normal. He was being chased around like a pig and a wolf, and he was on the verge of tears. Senior brother, wake up, don't chase me." The purple-eyed man's martial arts were obviously very high. He stretched out his mutated hand and finally grabbed the crying man. He pulled him into his embrace and opened his mouth to bite him. Whoosh! A white light shot out, shooting at the crazy purple-eyed man. He was pushed back a few steps. Suddenly, he raised his eyes and looked at Shun Yinma, who had just released the white light. Shin Yinma could not help but feel a chill down his spine. The purple-eyed man let go of his junior brother and rushed toward little Nyenma. Little Nyenma was not really afraid. His little hand emitted a white light and flew toward the purple-eyed man. This was not a killing move, but a move that his father had taught him to expel evil energy, although the power of his technique was not as great as that of Shunjuli's. The power of this technique was not small. His father said that even if someone was poisoned by the zombie poison, this method could be used to expel it, and it worked every time. However, this time, he had already shot 6 or 7 times, but the man's eyes were still purple. He was almost caught by him. IMO raised her hand, and a red light wrapped around the man. In an instant, it was as if he was shackled. The man was tightly bound by the red light and could no longer move. Chapter 1694. IMO raised her hand, and a ray of red light wrapped around the man. In an instant, the man was shackled by the red light and could no longer move. IMO raised her hand and rubbed Shun Yima's head. "Good boy. Try it on him slowly." Therefore, Shun Yima happily tried all kinds of detoxification methods on the man. That junior brother breathed a sigh of relief and cupped his hands towards IMO. "Thank you for your help, Mississippi. Please do save my senior brother. He is a good person who has always taken it upon himself to subdue demons and devils." M.O. interrupted him. "What is going on? How did he get poisoned?" The junior told her what happened. They were from a cultivation sect and were passing by this place. When they saw the strange purple smoke, they flew over with their swords to see what kind of demon was behind it. They were also afraid of being poisoned, so they used an anti-poison spell before entering the forest. However, it did not work. Not long after they entered the forest, the senior who had been walking in front suddenly stopped. He patted his senior's shoulder in surprise and wanted to ask him what was going on. He did not expect his senior to become like this and chase after him with a pair of purple eyes. The junior briefly told the story and continued to beg IMO. In order to impress her, he kept talking about his senior's past deeds of killing demons. In IMO's ears, she felt that this senior was like a reincarnated Fahai. Whenever he saw a demon, it was as if he saw a mortal enemy. Whether it was evil or not, he would kill it. The junior kept talking, but IMO's pretty face was getting colder and colder. That junior brother seemed to have sensed something amiss as he spoke and finally shut his mouth. IMO slowly dusted her sleeves. "Do you know who I am?" "You are." The junior had a bad feeling in his heart. "Devil Master," IMO chuckled. "This senior brother of yours has killed quite a few of my people." The man's face changed drastically and took a few steps back. You. IMO looked at him gently. "Tell me, how many have you killed? As many as your senior?" No. The man was obviously a little flustered. IMO smiled gently again. "You're not allowed to lie. If you do, I'll punish you even more harshly." The man's face turned green and white for a while. Suddenly, he puffed out his chest and said, "I admit that I've killed 3 evildoers. It's not that I'm not capable enough. It's just that I'm too soft-hearted. I can't bear to kill anyone who isn't evil. Senior Marshal Brother often says that I'm too soft-hearted." IMO sized him up. This person was indeed soft-hearted. His senior brother had almost bitten him to death, but he couldn't bear to slap him. That junior marshal brother looked as if he was going to throw caution to the wind. "Did you release this strange purple smoke? Do you want to turn the human world into a purgatory?" This person's imagination was really rich. Was he brainwashed by his senior brother? He drew his sword and pointed it at IMO today. "Even if I die, I will." Before he could finish speaking, he felt a sudden heat in his hand. The sword had actually melted in an instant. If he hadn't pulled back in time, he probably wouldn't have been able to keep one of his hands. IMO's voice was indifferent. "You're not even qualified to fight me. You can scram now. There's a city 60 miles ahead. Tell the magistrate there to quickly evacuate the people." The man was stunned. He didn't expect that she would let him go so easily. Moreover, from her words, it was obvious that she wasn't the one who released the purple smoke. He couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. "Then what about my senior marshal brother?" IMO asked him back. "Is your senior marshal brother more important, or the safety of the people in the city more important?" Chapter 1695. IMO asked him back, "Is your senior brother more important than the safety of the people in the city?" That one sentence caused that person's face to turn green and white. Gritting his teeth, he steeled his heart and rode his sword away. On the other side, Shun Yinma had already tried more than a dozen methods on his senior, but none of them worked. "Mother, is it because I'm not good enough?" After all, it was Shun Yinma's first time, so he could not figure out his own strength. IMO looked at the few methods that Shun Yinma used to exorcise evil spirits and realized that she could do it too. Therefore, she also cast a spell, and a ball of blazing white light directly shrouded the man. Shun Yinma exclaimed happily, "Mother, you can do it too." The white light that she emitted was certainly different from Shun Yinma's. It was extremely powerful, almost as powerful as Shun Jiuli's. Shun Yinma was very satisfied and waited for the man to recover. He did not expect that after the white light disappeared, the man was still the same. His strength had increased a lot. He struggled to break the red light that trapped him and repeatedly showed his newly grown fangs to Shun Yinma. "He is hopeless." IMO did not want to waste any more energy on the man. She directly cast a red light, and the man immediately turned into dust and disappeared. Shun Yinma frowned. "Mother, it seems that he is hopeless after being poisoned by this poisonous smoke. What should we do? If the smoke continues to spread, I don't know how many creatures will be affected." IMO also rubbed her eyebrows. It was like a bird flu virus. Animals and humans could not survive if they inhaled it. She was afraid that other species would not be able to survive if they encountered it. The reason why she spent so much energy on the senior brother was to experiment on him to see if there was a way to save him. Now, it seemed that there was no way. She took out her directed audio spell and contacted Shuilon. Without waiting for him to greet her, she directly briefed him about the situation and asked him to quickly order the nearby demons to move away. Shuilon was worried about her safety. "Momo, don't act rashly. I will be there soon." "There's no need for that. Just give the order." IMO didn't wait for Shuilon to speak any more nonsense and turned off the voice transmission talisman. "Let's go to the place where the smoke is coming from." He flew out of the forest and headed straight for the top of the mountain. She also knew that the purple smoke was extremely dangerous, so she did not want the child to be in danger. Therefore, she asked Chaos to stop Shun Yinma in the air and told him not to be attacked by the purple smoke. He should not run around and stay within her sight. Shun Yinma also knew that he should not cause any more trouble for his mother, so he nodded in agreement. "Mother, be careful." "I will. I'll be right back." IMO swooped down. She planned to take a look first before making a decision. She dared to set up a protective shield around her body. Then, she ran towards the place where the purple smoke was coming from. Her body disappeared into the purple smoke. Shin Yinma only hated that he was still too inexperienced and too weak. He could not fight side by side with his mother. Now, he could only watch helplessly. Chaos was very protective of its little master. It had been carrying its little master in circles in the air. It could not leave the place, but it could not be attacked by the purple smoke. 10 minutes passed, a quarter of an hour passed. An hour passed, 2 hours passed. Time passed by as Shun Yinma waited anxiously. Chapter 1696. The purple smoke was getting bigger and bigger. A few clouds of purple smoke had joined together and almost covered half of the mountain. The circle of chaos was getting bigger and bigger. Shin Yinma's eyes were fixed on the place where his mother had jumped into. His heart was burning with anxiety. His mother said that she would be back soon. Why did she not come back after so long? At first, he was afraid that he would disturb his mother, so he pursed his lips and restrained himself from calling out to her. Half an hour later, he couldn't hold it in any longer and began to probe. "Mother, what's going on inside?" His current skill was already very good, and his voice could be heard by the entire mountain. He believed that his mother could hear him even more. There was no response. There was no response from below. In the end, Shun Yinma could not hold it in any longer. He kept calling out to his mother until his voice was hoarse, but his mother did not respond. It was as if she had been swallowed by the purple smoke and would never come back. It had been an hour. Shun Yinma could not wait any longer. He was so impulsive that he wanted to rush down to take a look. Fortunately, chaos was still rational. It held his body that had just jumped down and gave him a suggestion in a muffled voice. "Your mother is the Devil Master. We don't know if she is dead or alive after she goes down. Your current power is not even 1,000th of your mother's. Jumping down is a waste of your life. If your mother escapes and can't find you, she will be even more anxious. What should I do?" Shin Yinma's voice was trembling. His excessive anxiety made his mind blank. "Calm down." Chaos only said these 4 words. Shin Yinma's heart trembled. This was also what his father often taught him. He told him that no matter what happened, the first thing to do was to be calm. Only then could he make the most accurate judgment and come up with the most perfect response. Shun Yinma took a deep breath and took out a golden directed audio spell from his sleeve. This was given to him by Shan Juli before Shun Yinma came. He told him not to use it unless there was something very special. His father seemed to have really given up on his mother. In the past 3 months, he rarely mentioned her. Even if he did, it was just a passing remark. Shin Yinma did not want his father to give up on his mother. Sometimes he would deliberately mention his mother in front of his father. However, Shun Juli always avoided the topic with a few words. Shin Yinma thought that his father would never let him see his mother again. After being listless for a few days, Shun Yinma finally regained his energy when his father promised him to look for his mother as soon as the mythological beast was awakened. Before he came, Shun Juli had told him personally that he was going to cultivate in seclusion, and that he should not disturb him unless there was something urgent. As for the little things that happened between Shun Yinma and his mother, there was no need to tell him. Shin Yinma also knew that it was a taboo to be disturbed during a closed-door practice. Otherwise, it would be easy to go crazy. Especially recently, his father did not look too good. He really needed to meditate to recover. Father had said that this voice transmission talisman could only be used once. Therefore, Shin Yinma did not dare to answer this special directed audio spell. However, now that his mother had such an accident, he could only ask for help from his father. Blood dripped from his fingertips. He used a special method to activate the directed audio spell. The spell flashed, but it was not connected. Shin Yinma's heart almost jumped out of his throat. Did something happen to his father? Or was he at a critical moment in his cultivation and could not answer? Chapter 1697. Father, please pick me up. For Shun Yinma, 1 second felt as long as a century. Fortunately, after half a minute, the directed audio spell finally turned completely golden, and his father's voice was heard. "Yinma, what's the matter?" His voice was slightly hoarse, but it was still clear. Shinyenma almost cried out loud. He tried his best to calm himself down. Father, mother, and I came to the human world to play. We saw a strange purple smoke in Jiai Mountain in the Qinghua Kingdom. Although Shen Yinma's voice was slightly trembling, his expression was very clear. He had the time, place, and incident. In the end, his voice finally sounded like he was about to cry. Father, can you come and save my mother? I am really worried. I want to go down and have a look. Your mother's life is not in danger. Stay there and don't act rashly. I will be there soon. Shun Jiuli's voice was clear and low, as if to reassure Shin Yinma. The golden directed audio spell was extinguished. It burned in Shin Yinma's hand and turned into ashes. His mother's life was not in danger. Shin Yinma caught this sentence in time and finally breathed a sigh of relief. Then he was a little puzzled. His father had not seen the actual situation here. How did he know that his mother's life was not in danger? Was it a prediction? Another hour passed. In this hour, Shin Yinma did not stop calling. Of course, he did not get any response. If it were not for his father's words, he was afraid that he would have rushed down regardless of the consequences. While he was riding on chaos, a white light flashed in the distance, and a person appeared in front of him. Shin Yinma was stunned. He looked at the person who came and almost could not believe his eyes. Father. It was such a long distance, but his father came so quickly. When he and his mother came here, his mother used the Devil Kingdom's flying spell and flew for nearly 6 hours. He thought that even if his father was faster, it would take at least 4 hours. He did not expect that he would arrive in just over an hour. The person who came was Shun Jiuli. This time, his attire was a little strange. He wore a wide light blue robe with faint silver patterns flowing on it. Perhaps he was in a hurry, so his face was a little pale. However, his eyes were still deep, and his voice was still cold. The first sentence he said was, Nyinma, your vacation is canceled. You should go back now. Shin Yinma was stunned. Father. He paused for a moment and finally said what he wanted to say. Father, it is okay to cancel Nyinma's leave, but Nyinma wants to follow you to save Mother. He was worried sick. He had to see with his own eyes that his mother was safe and sound. Shun Jiuli glanced at him and said, I'll give you 2 choices. 1, go back now. Father promises to give you a mother in one piece. Secondly, Father will personally escort you back. Father will no longer care about this place. You can choose now. Shin Yinma's eyes widened. He did not expect his father to be so heartless. He burst into tears. Father, haven't you always liked Mother? How can you threaten Nyinma with her safety? Shun Jiuli said coldly, Father is tired. Since we have gone our separate ways, there is no need to worry about her. This time, I'm here mainly for you. Even if I go down to save her, it is also for you. Then, can Nyinma wait here? As long as Father rescues Mother, I will leave immediately. Chapter 1698. Then, can Nyinma stay here and wait? As long as Father rescues Mother, I will leave immediately. I will not delay. Nyinma will stay here obediently and will not cause any trouble for Father. Shin Yinma still wanted to argue. Shun Jiuli looked at the distance, which was almost covered by the purple smoke. Shin Yinma, are you sure you want to bargain with Father here? Father does not care. Anyway, the person who is trapped is not important to Father. It is not a big deal to let her suffer a little more. Shin Yinma was speechless. At this time, he had to choose to leave even if he was unwilling. Hun Dun carried Shin Yinma and flew away. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the sky. Shun Jiuli looked at his son's back. There was a flash of sadness in his eyes. Shin Yinma was still young. There was no use for him to stay here. He would only distract his parents. At this time, he did not have the energy to be distracted anymore. He had brought all the 8 mythological beasts out, but they were not as fast as him. They were still on their way. They would meet Nyinma and escort him back to Fantian Palace. He turned around and looked at the purple smoke pillar that IMO had jumped down from. Just as he was about to jump down, he suddenly seemed to have sensed something. He slowly turned around and looked at the purple smoke ball that had closed up not far away. His gaze focused on the figure that was faintly discernible in the purple smoke ball. After a slight pause, he finally said, "So you've already come out by yourself." The figure shuttled out of the purple smoke. Her red clothes were dancing under the sunset. It was IMO who was trapped in the purple smoke. Her eyes were as bright as rubies. She looked at Shun Julie from head to toe and looked indifferent. "Yes, I just came out not long ago." Shun Julie looked at her. He had not seen her for 3 months since they parted at Fantion Palace. At this moment, she had the appearance of a young girl. She had big round eyes and a half-smile. She was very similar to the appearance of Ning Xiuama in his memory. She had been trapped in the purple smoke for so long, but he did not see any injuries on her body. Her face was slightly pale, but there was nothing wrong with her. She was actually able to escape from the 8-directional Violet Fiend formation by herself. It seemed like her kung fu had improved enough. The two of them stood facing each other. Their once loving and undying feelings seemed to have vanished into thin air. She looked at him like she was looking at a stranger. Shun Julie turned his eyes away and looked at the purple smoke. "It is good that you're fine. Niema is very worried about you. You can use your directed audio spell to tell him that you are safe." IMO smirked. "You don't have to tell me that." She took out her directed audio spell and connected to Shun Yinma. Shun Yinma could not believe his ears when he heard Mo's voice. Mother, is it really you? It's the real deal." Mo comforted him. "You can rest assured now. Go back to your Fantion Palace first. Mother will take you out when things are done here." Shun Yinma happily agreed, but the happiness came too quickly. He still could not believe it. "Well, did my father deliberately change my mother's voice to fool me?" Mo faintly glanced at Shun Julie, who was not far away, and answered her son. "Of course not. Stupid son, didn't you realize that the directed audio spell that called you is only used between mother and son?" Shun Yinma seemed to have finally realized it and let go of his doubts. Chapter 1699. He was still puzzled. "Mother, why were you gone for so long? You said that you would be back soon." "Well, there's an array there, and it is not easy to break. I'm actually very anxious." "Well, I still have something to do. You can go back first." After the directed audio spell ended, Shun Yinma finally went back with satisfaction. IMO put away the directed audio spell. When she looked up, her eyes met with Shun Julie's. Both of them looked at each other in the air. IMO's eyes were cold. Shun Julie looked away. His voice was also cold. "This is the purple evil array. Once it is activated, all 6 realms will be in trouble. It will become a real hell. This array has been activated once 50,000 years ago, and all 6 realms were poisoned. This time, if we want to seal it again, we must work together with the immortals and devils. I have already informed the Emperor Immortal and Ming Di. They should be here soon. Devil Master, please inform the Monster Kingdom." "Momo." A voice came from afar and interrupted Shun Julie's words. Then, a red light came from afar and arrived in front of them in the blink of an eye. This person was Shuelon. He did not even look at Shun Julie, who was standing aside. His eyes fell directly on Amo, and then he heaved a sigh of relief. "Momo, fortunately, you are fine." He looked again at Amo's face and frowned slightly. "Momo, you don't look very good. Are you hurt?" His concern was obvious. "I am fine. This thing can't trap me." IMO came closer to Shuelon. "Shuelon, you are here the right time." Shuelon's eyes were slightly brightened. This time, he faintly felt that IMO seemed to treat him differently. He glanced at Shun Julie, who was not far away. Shun Julie did not look at him at all. He seemed to be engrossed in the purple smoke below. "Did you miss me?" Shuelon was half joking and half serious. He tentatively stretched out his arm and gently hugged her waist. IMO didn't hide. Instead, she leaned her head on his shoulder. "There's probably going to be a tough battle later. Let me lean on you first." Shuelon's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't believe his good luck. He hugged her even tighter. "It's okay. You should rest first." He simply sat down on the cloud and let her lean in his arms. IMO seemed to be really tired. She yawned. "Shuelon, did you bring anything to eat?" Shuelon was stunned. "What do you want to eat?" I'll get it for you. Imo pursed her lips in dissatisfaction. When you were by my side, you always carried my favorite food with you. Shwe Elon's heart trembled as he looked down at her. Momo, you remember our past? She recovered her memories. Imo didn't answer him. She only closed her eyes and muttered, so hungry. Shwe Elon was really conflicted. When she was still Shwe Imo, the two of them depended on each other for survival. He spoiled her and knew that she liked to eat, so he always brought all kinds of food with him. He even learned how to cook, so he fed her until she was full at any time. After his rebirth, although the two of them had met a few times, Imo had always been cold to him. She had never asked for anything from him, so he had changed his habit of carrying food with him. Right now, let alone good food, he couldn't even find a piece of steamed bun. He really wanted to find food for her, but he couldn't bear to give up this opportunity to hug a beauty. God knows how long he had been waiting for this opportunity. Chapter 1700. Just as he was feeling conflicted, a hand suddenly reached over. In the palm was a plate of exquisite pastries. Looking up the light blue sleeve, he saw Shun Julie's expressionless face. Eat this. It'll replenish your strength. Imo looked up at him and pushed his hand away. She yawned lazily. I don't want to eat your food. She then turned to Shwe Elon. I remember that you're good at roasting game. Shwe Elon looked down at the forest below, and his eyes lit up. Okay, I'll take you down there to roast game. He half-hugged Imo's waist and rushed down to a place not covered by the purple smoke. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the dense forest. Shun Julie slowly retracted his hand. The pastry in his palm was still steaming, and the sweet aroma lingered in the air. It was the most successful pastry he had ever made, and no one would want to eat it anymore. This was good. He slowly raised his hand, and the pastry in his palm turned into powder. When the wind blew, the powder disappeared without a trace. He slowly sat on the cloud and lowered his eyes to meditate. A bonfire. A pheasant was about to be roasted over the bonfire. The golden skin was covered in oil, and the aroma assailed his nostrils. Shwe Elon looked at Imo, who was sleeping next to him, and then looked up at the sky in the distance. Shun Julie saw him and Imo being so intimate, but he didn't react or chase after them. Did he really give up and let go? After the pheasant was roasted, he spun it around in his hand. The piping hot pheasant was already at the right temperature. He gently patted Imo awake and handed the pheasant to her. Imo's eyes lit up as she took it. It seemed that she was really hungry. Like a hurricane, the pheasant was reduced to a pile of bones in a moment. Shwe Elon's lips twitched. His Momo's appetite had grown. At this time, the sky was completely dark. Under the light of the bonfire, Imo's eyes were shining. After finishing the pheasant, she still wanted more. Shwe Elon, roast more. Momo, are you still hungry? Imo shook his head. SOSO. In fact, she felt a little bloated. However, there was a space in her chest that she always felt a little empty. No matter how much she stuffed, it would not be able to fill it. Thus, Shwe Elon began to roast things again. Hunting was very easy for him now. He didn't need to get up. All he had to do was blow a whistle, and all kinds of small animals would automatically come to him. Shwe Elon casually picked out a few small and plump breeds with fresh meat. He butchered them and roasted them one by one. He intended to show off his ability in front of her, and naturally did his best to do it in the most beautiful way possible. Momo, what is this purple smoke? Imo was gnawing on a rabbit leg. She looked up at the sky and shook her head. I've never seen it before, but that supreme divinity should know. He should be able to explain it to everyone when they're all here. Shwe Elon's eyes moved slightly. He was not very interested in the purple smoke, but he was interested in what Imo had just said. These days, when Imo occasionally mentioned Shun Julie to him, she would call him by his name and talk about how good Shun Julie was. This time, however, she directly called him by his identity. The sense of unfamiliarity was obvious in her words. What happened between her and Shun Julie? How had they come to this point? Shwe Elon did not dare to ask directly, for fear of offending her. He chose the safest question. Momo, Are the three of you traveling together? By the way, where is little Nianma? Chapter 17:01. Imo was already gnawing on the second rabbit leg. Without looking up, she said, Nianma and I are here to play. We accidentally found something wrong here, so we came here. This place is too dangerous, so little Nianma went back to Fantion Palace. As for the Divine Lord, he is here to find his son and solve the problem here. Shuilan's heart skipped a beat. He blurted out, Momo, have you recovered some of your memory? Just as he said this, he suddenly saw auspicious chi rising in the sky. 10,000 rays of multicolored light shone, and several figures appeared. Imo clapped her hands and stood up. She did not answer his question. Instead, she smiled lazily. All right, almost everyone is here. It's time for the meeting. It was a rare gathering of the elites of the Six Realms. The Celestial Emperor, Ming Di, the Demon King, the Divine Lord, the Great Devil, the four great guardians of the Devil Clan, the four heavenly kings of the Celestial Kingdom, and Yi Tianli were all there. The mortal world had also sent their most powerful national master. Hundreds of people gathered in the sky. It was quite a spectacular sight. Shen Juli and Imo had the highest status. Naturally, they stood at the top. The Celestial Emperor, Shui Ilan, and the other emperors stood on both sides. The Celestial Kingdom, the Underworld, the Devil Kingdom, the Monster Kingdom. Unknowingly, there was a clear divide. Most of these people did not know what was going on. They were also confused about the purple smoke. After all, the Celestial Emperor had lived on the mainland for a long time. He could find more information. He had seen a little bit of the description and power of the purple smoke in some of the scrolls, but it was not complete. Fortunately, Imo had just come out from the purple smoke. She knew a little about it. She immediately told them about some of the dangers of the purple smoke. Of course, she also told them about the structure she saw when she went down. She said that there was an unprecedented array below. This array should be the evil sealing array. The purple smoke that could drive all the people in the Six Realms crazy was sealed at the bottom. This time, there must be a flaw in the array. That was why the purple smoke leaked out. As for the origin of this purple smoke, Imo glanced at the silent Shun, Julie beside him. The Supreme Divinity should know something about it. Therefore, everyone looked at Shun Julie. As for the explanation of the purple smoke, Shun Julie only briefly explained. This purple smoke is called the purple evil of 8 directions. It is the most evil thing in the world. 50,000 years ago, this purple smoke once destroyed all the living beings in the Six Realms. These words caused everyone's expression to change greatly. The Heaven Sovereign seemed to have a sudden realization. Among the living beings of the Six Realms, no matter if they were immortals, devils, or beasts, almost none of them were older than 50,000 years old. Even the information from 50,000 years ago had been completely destroyed, with only a few fragments occasionally appearing in the world. No matter if it was an immortal or a devil, once they cultivated to the peak, they were basically immortal, unless there was an extremely special reason that would take their lives. That was what the immortal devil, Remnant Scroll, said about what happened 50,000 years ago. The celestial race and the devil race fought each other, and the great calamity of the Six Realms arrived. The celestial race and the devil race both immortalized, and heaven and earth entered the cycle of reincarnation. 10,000 years later, the Six Realms were reborn. To put it simply, the Great War of Celestial Race 50,000 years ago plunged the Six Realms into chaos. All the living beings in the Six Realms perished because of the calamity. The Supreme Divinity and the Devil Lord immortalized and disappeared without a trace. All the living beings in the Celestial Race and the Devil Continent were reshuffled. 10,000 years later, the Six Realms were formed again. Of course, because all the information from 50,000 years ago had disappeared, the immortal devil Remnant Scroll had no idea who had written it. Its authenticity and accuracy could not be verified. Chapter 17:02. The Celestial Emperor had always thought it was a battle between gods and demons that led to the end of the world. Now that he heard the supreme divinity's words, he realized he had been mistaken all along. Did that mean the supreme divinity had recovered his memories from 50,000 years ago? Otherwise, he wouldn't have said that. The Celestial Emperor recalled the ancient formation Amo had mentioned that sealed the evil purple smoke. He couldn't help but ask, Supreme Divinity, who set up that ancient formation? Shun Julie's eyes were indifferent. I, the Devil Lord, and other ancient immortals and demons worked together to set it up. Everyone looked at each other, and then at the Supreme Divinity and Devil Lord who were standing above them. Their eyes were filled with surprise. Didn't they say that gods and demons were at odds with each other 50,000 years ago, so they fought an ancient war? So there was a time when they worked together? The immortals were especially shocked. In their hearts, demons were evil, and the Devil Lord was the ancestor of evil. Now that the Devil Lord had been reborn, they were actually shocked and afraid of her, not out of true reverence. Now that they heard that she was the main person who saved the gods-demons continent, they were shocked, and their bad impression of her changed slightly. It turned out that demons could save the world too. At this moment, the purple smoke had already spread over half of Mount Jiai. However, it wasn't too bad. Just as the smoke was about to overflow, it hit some kind of barrier and didn't overflow. Instead, it just piled up higher and higher. From afar, it gave off a feeling of impending disaster. Everyone's hearts were in their mouths. 50,000 years ago, the gods-demons continent was destroyed by this purple smoke. Now that it had reappeared, what were they going to do? Everyone looked at Shun Julie again, waiting for him to explain. This time, it's a leakage of the purple smoke, not a large-scale eruption. As long as we control it well and repair the ancient formation, we can avoid this disaster. Supreme Divinity, what exactly should we do? Please tell us. Shinjuli did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. In this mountain, I set up a restriction 50,000 years ago to prevent the purple evil from leaking out. However, once the purple evil starts to leak out, this restriction can only last for 3 days. If the ancient formation is not repaired within 3 days, the restriction will explode and this mountain will disappear completely. At that time, the purple evil will spread to the 6 realms within a day. All living beings will turn into ignorant devils and be destroyed by the heavenly axiom. After Shun Jili finished talking about the pros and cons of this matter, he explained how to repair the ancient Great Array. This purple smoke was very tyrannical. It could even injure people around Heaven rank level 1, and those below Earth rank level 8 would be poisoned with a 100% chance. In order to repair the formation, one had to go deep into the ground where the purple smoke was the thickest. There were a total of 9 places where the formation had collapsed, and each place required a pair of immortals and devils to repair it. Furthermore, this pair of immortals and devils had to be 1 man and 1 woman. After Shun Julie explained the method and key points to repair the seal, he glanced at everyone. Everyone can freely group up, but it must be 1 immortal and 1 devil. 8 teams will enter the 8 damaged places. I will personally seal the central place. As for the others, split up into 8 directions and use spells to support the restriction. Shun Jili first picked out the 18 people who were responsible for repairing the formation, then let them regroup freely. At this time, no one dared to be negligent and look for their own partners. Shui Ilan naturally wanted to be in the same group as Mo, but demons could not be in the same group. He could only reluctantly choose a fairy from the celestial world. Chapter 17:03. Imo pursed her lips. She didn't say anything as she watched them split into groups. She was the Devil Master. Only the Supreme Divinity was qualified to be her partner. Needless to say, Shun Julie wanted to seal the most important place in the center with her. Was she going to be alone with him? She didn't know if her heart was in a mess. Forget it. It didn't matter if she was in the same group as him. They were just temporary partners. In the future, they would go their separate ways at such a crucial time. She didn't want to cause any trouble. Gong Huanyin, follow me to repair the center. Shun Julie's voice suddenly sounded again. He looked at a female guardian of the devil world. The female guardian was stunned. She looked up at the supreme divinity in disbelief. She opened her mouth slightly and pointed at herself. She stuttered, "Supreme divinity is calling me?" "Yes. Do you have a problem with that?" Julie asked in a calm and natural voice. No. But I'm the weakest. I'm afraid. I'm afraid I can't keep up with supreme divinity." Gong Huanyin was the weakest of the 4 guardians of the devil world. Now that she was chosen by the supreme divinity, she almost thought she was dreaming. "Don't be afraid. I'll tell you what to do when the time comes." Julie's voice was slightly gentle. Gong Huanyin couldn't help but look at her master. Mo. Mo's expression was normal. He still stood there without saying a word. It should be a tacit agreement. At this time, Gong Huanyin naturally agreed. She didn't know why, but she felt a little nervous. She felt a little sorry for her master. Since the rebirth of the Devil Master, although she treated her subordinates coldly, she didn't criticize them. She even gave them the greatest degree of freedom. She was a rare good master. After she agreed, she couldn't help but look at Imo again. Imo stood there, but didn't look at them at all. There was a smile on his lips, and no one could see any displeasure. In fact, if they were partners, everyone would be willing to be with a strong master. At least there was less pressure and more safety. Originally, everyone thought that the Supreme Divinity and the Devil Master would be partners. Now that the Supreme Divinity suddenly picked another female devil, how could the men of the immortal world be polite? They all came to discuss the partnership with IMO, but IMO rejected them all. Even the Celestial Emperor extended a sincere invitation. "May I have the honor of traveling with you, Devil Master?" He felt that other than the Supreme Divinity, he was the only one who was qualified to be the Devil Master's partner. IMO smiled faintly and ignored him. Her slender hand suddenly pointed at Yi Tianli, who had been standing in a remote corner. Her voice was crisp and clear. "Yi Tianli, do you dare to partner with me?" Yi Tianli was stunned. He used to be the strongest cultivator in the immortal realm, but ever since his hand was cut off by Mo's sword, his newbie hand hadn't regenerated yet, so his power was greatly reduced. The man who used to be the most handsome man in the 6 realms had now become somewhat down and out. Just now, when they were free to group up, none of those demonesses took the initiative to invite him. He couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed, but it was also within his expectations, so he stood in a corner without saying a word, waiting for the random pairing. However, he didn't expect Mo to actually choose him. This was completely out of his expectations. He couldn't help but raise his head, his gaze faintly complicated. Mo looked at him. "I won't force anyone. You can refuse." Yi Tianli smiled. "Why should I refuse?" "Thank you, Devil Master, for your appreciation." There was a hint of sarcasm in his tone. Chapter 1704. Julie's expression changed slightly. He looked at Yi Tianli and then at Imo. Finally, he said, "The Demon Lord is in charge of the second most important place. It's not a small matter. We must choose someone who can cooperate with us at the crucial moment." Imo finally turned to look at him. Their eyes met slightly in the air. Imo was calm, and her eyes were as calm as water. "How do you know that Venerable Yi and I won't cooperate?" Julie choked. Imo looked at Yi Tianli again. "Are you afraid that I once cut off Venerable Ye's right hand and he will hold a grudge and drop the ball at the crucial moment?" This sentence was asked so directly. Not only did it make Julie choke again, but also made Yi Tianli's handsome face turn pale. He subconsciously retorted, "How can I be such a shameless villain? No matter how narrow-minded I am, I will not joke around with the people of the 6 realms. It's rare that the Demon Lord thinks highly of me. I will do my best to cooperate with the Demon Lord. You can rest assured." Imo clapped her hands gently and smiled. "I like what you said. Yi Tianli, if you hold a grudge against me, you can seek revenge on me after this incident. I will accept it. At most, I will return you one hand." Her smile was like a flower blooming and a pearl shining brightly. She had a kind of upright character, which made Yi Tianli's heart tremble again. Yi Tianli originally had some other thoughts in his heart, But at this moment, all the bad thoughts disappeared. He raised his head and smiled. Demon Lord, you are too serious. Back then, Demon Lord punished me because I was in the wrong first. Demon Lord's punishment is reasonable and not excessive. If you were in my position, if my child was stolen, I am afraid that I would tear the thief into pieces. Demon Lord, you have already shown mercy by cutting off my hand. He bowed deeply to, Demon Lord, after I cut off my hand, I did hold a grudge against you. But now I have thought it through. This time, I will do my best to cooperate with you to seal Zisha. I will not dare to be disloyal. If I am disloyal, I will be struck by lightning. This was a vicious vow. Thunder rolled faintly in the sky, indicating that his vow was valid. Shinjili naturally had no more objections. He took the lead and jumped into the formation. The immortals and devils sealed in all directions naturally followed. If one wanted to enter the interior of the formation, they had to go through the same door, the life gate. After entering the gate of life, they parted ways. In order to ensure that this operation was 100% successful, they had to ensure that no accidents happened to any group. The inside of the formation was unpredictable and filled with killing intent. The forts and the paths were as numerous as a spider's web. If one took the wrong path, everything would go wrong. Once one entered the death gate, not to mention sealing the loophole, even the person would be turned into ashes immediately. Shunjuli was the only one he was familiar with, so he was duty-bound to send each pair to the designated location. According to the pre-agreed formation, when they first entered the narrow gate of life, Shunjuli walked in the front, followed by his partner Gong Huanyin, and then the others. Imo was at the back, and in front of her was Yi Tianli. This formation was the most convenient to deal with unexpected situations. After everyone rushed down, they found that the formation was in the belly of the mountain. After passing through the gate of life, there was a dark passage. The passage was filled with purple smoke. It was so dense that it was tangible and intangible. It spread around everyone and could not be dispersed. Chapter 17:05. Everyone activated their protective barriers to resist the invasion of the purple smoke. The purple smoke was too thick, and they felt suffocated as they walked through it. Probably because it had been sealed for tens of thousands of years, there were some unknown things growing in the array. From time to time, they would suddenly appear in the purple smoke and attack people who entered. Fortunately, Imo had come in advance and knew the general situation inside. He also explained it to everyone in advance. Everyone was a master, so it was not too difficult to deal with it. There were various flashing colors of talismans on the walls of the passage from time to time, flashing like ghost fire. Which one of the people who entered this passage had not been in this world for thousands of years? What strange things had they not seen? What scary places had they not been to? Most people thought that they did not know what the word fear was. But after entering, they could clearly feel a very strong and terrifying aura. It was as if there was a very scary monster hidden in the depths of the purple smoke, waiting for a group of people to walk into its trap with its mouth wide open. It was a fear that came from the bones. Those who were slightly weaker would be paralyzed by the terrifying aura before they could even touch the monster. Most people's hearts were beating wildly, and they subconsciously held their breath. Gong Huanyin was the weakest among them. Soon after entering, her legs began to tremble. The further she walked, the more afraid she became. Even her body trembled slightly. Don't be afraid. Shun Juli, who was walking in front, seemed to sense the strangeness of his companion. He comforted her in a low voice. With me here, there will be no danger. His voice was low and steady, giving people a strong sense of security. Gong Huanyin's heart calmed down a little, and she said in a trembling voice, "Yes. Thank you, Divine Lord. Hold my hand, you can calm down." Shinjili spoke again. "Thank you, Divine Lord." Gong Huanyin's voice was full of surprise. The purple smoke in the passage was so thick that it was almost impossible to see people after a few steps. Imo was at the back of the group, so she could not see Shanjuli and the others clearly, but she could still hear their voices. Such a person gave people a feeling of a mountain no matter where he went, and people who were under his protection would feel very safe. But he asked Gong Huanyin to hold his hand, right? He, such a clean freak, had broken his own rules for the greater good. She lowered her eyes slightly. While she was distracted for a moment, she tripped over something and staggered. "Be careful." Yi Tianli, who was walking in front of her, held her. "Demon Lord, are you all right?" "I'm fine. I just tripped over a rock." "Watch out." A purple bat emerged from the purple smoke and almost pecked Yi Tianli's head with its sharp beak. IMO swung his long sword horizontally, and the purple bat immediately turned into a few drops of blood. Her movements were as fast as lightning. Before Yi Tianli could even see her movements, she had already sheathed her sword. "Thank you," Yi Tianli said in a low voice. "You're welcome. It's my duty to protect my companions." Almo's voice was faint. When Shanjili came in, he did say that in this big array, partners had to live and die together. Only by helping each other could they achieve the best results. Yes, Yi Tianli only said one word, but he felt a little guilty. He was a man, and a man should have the responsibility to protect a woman. He should not wait for a woman to protect him. He had made up his mind that he would use all his strength to protect the woman behind him. Chapter 1706. Shui Alan was right in front of Yi Tianli. He suddenly said, "Yi Tianli, we haven't reached the sealed area yet. Let's change positions first." Yi Tianli frowned but did not move. "The Divine Lord has instructed us to maintain this formation and not change positions. We haven't reached the sealed area yet. Change positions." Shui Alan did not give up. He always felt that he should be the one standing next to IMO, especially in this dangerous area. He pulled back his sleeves and wanted to forcefully change positions with Yi Tianli by his collar. Now is the crucial moment to train your team's cooperation. No one is allowed to change positions. Shanjili, who was in front, said coldly without turning his head, "Shui Alan, you and Ice Jade Fairy cooperate seamlessly. Now is not the time to care about small things. The big picture is more important," Mo said at the right time. "All right, the big picture is more important." Although Shui Alan wanted to scold his grandpa, he knew that it was not the time to throw a tantrum. The most important thing was to seal Zi Sha. This passage was quite long. There were various kinds of attacks along the way. Fortunately, none of these people were easy to deal with. It was more than enough to deal with them. These people were grouped temporarily, and they came from two different factions. In the beginning, they had some scruples about each other and did not dare to leave their backs to each other. However, after walking in this passage for a long time, they knew that they could rely on each other without any accidents. Slowly, they began to cooperate. When dealing with those attacks, they paid attention to cooperating with each other. Slowly, they became more familiar with each other and trusted each other more. Imo no longer paid attention to Shun Julie's team. Instead, she focused on cooperating with Yi Tianli. In order to train their tacit understanding, Imo and Yi Tianli would fight side by side once they encountered an attack. As for the monsters coming from Yi Tianli's direction, she did not care at all. Everyone knew that Yi Tianli's right hand was very powerful, but very few people knew that his left-hand sword skills were also very good. He just did not usually show it. Most of the monsters that appeared at the beginning were small, but in large numbers. For example, vampire bats. Because it had lived in such a place for a long time, this kind of monster had an extremely powerful, insidious poison on its body. Being scratched by it could kill a person. When the countless bats attacked, he and Imo stood with their backs to each other. Their swords flashed like lightning, killing all the monsters that attacked from their direction. Imo, on the other hand, had his back to him the entire time, never once turning his head. Trust. Only people with absolute trust would do that. The other party was a devil, but he was able to trust an immortal who had a grudge against him so much. Even now, he was still a cripple. After dealing with the attack, he asked with a half-hearted smile, "Mo, aren't you afraid that a half-cripple like me can't protect you?" One had to know that there were hundreds of vampire bats attacking at the same time. If he had been slightly slower, there would have been one or two of them stabbing in her back. Imo smiled carelessly and only said a few words, "I believe you." Yi Tianli's heart skipped a beat when he heard those words. This time, however, it wasn't love, but the absolute trust of a companion that made his blood boil. When he first got close to Imo, he was a little more competitive. Later on, it was a man's desire to conquer. The more he could not get, the more he wanted to get. He used all kinds of methods to please her and conquer her. In the end, he did not know whether his desire to conquer her was greater or... Chapter 17:07. Later, he was defeated by Shun Juli and left. He still resented Imo. Later, Imo cut off his hand because of Shun Yinma. His hatred for Imo went up another level. This hatred was the kind of hatred a man would have for his ex-girlfriend. He hated her for being so heartless. But now, he saw a kind of carefree brightness in her. Her appearance had changed, and he did not expect that her personality had changed as well. She was straightforward, bright, and generous. These characteristics were gradually revealed in her. Perhaps she did not realize it, but she had unconsciously attracted his attention. However, he knew that she now regarded him as a companion who could go through life and death together. Sometimes this kind of companionship was more touching than love. It was only at this moment that Yi Tianli truly regarded Imo as a friend who could go through life and death together. He did not say anything. Friends did not need to talk. Actions spoke for themselves. Yi Tianli heard the movement of the team at the front. Shun Juli protected Gong Huanyan very well. Gong Huanyan gradually calmed down from the panic when she was attacked. She knew that no matter how dangerous the situation was, Shun Juli would solve it for her. He would not let her get hurt. She could finally perform her usual level. From time to time, he could hear Gong Huanyan's happy and careful voice. "Divine Lord, is my move okay?" "It's okay." "Divine Lord, I'm sorry. I almost couldn't block it and let the bat bite you." "It's okay." "Divine Lord, was the angle of my move a little off?" "No." "Divine Lord." Yi Tianli had met Gong Huanyan before. Her kung fu was indeed good, but she was a little timid. As a member of the Devil Clan, she had a shy problem. She would blush when talking to men. Every time she saw him in Mo Palace, she would blush and walk away without even greeting him. He did not expect her to be so talkative. Shun Juli was really good. He could make a witch with such a personality gradually relax. It was as if she was a different person. Although he couldn't see Gong Huanyan's expression, he could imagine how shy and timid she was. Although Gong Huanyan wasn't as beautiful as Imo, she still had her own charm. In Mo Palace, there were still many devils who were fascinated by her. Yi Tianli could not help but look at Imo, who was beside him. Imo did not seem to have heard the conversation in front of him. There was nothing wrong with his expression. It seemed like Imo really had no feelings for this supreme divinity. She heard that they had already broken off the engagement. She wondered if she still had a chance. Yi Tianli was slightly distracted. Shua! A gust of wind from a sword flashed past his ear, startling him. When he came back to his senses, he saw a blood-sucking centipede struggling on Mo's crimson sword. With a slight shake of Mo's hand, the centipede turned into smoke and dissipated. "Thank you," Yi Tianli mumbled. "You're welcome. If you want to get out of here alive, don't get distracted." Mo's voice was slightly stern. If this Yi Tianli was once her subordinate, he would definitely be scolded by her. At such a moment, the group of agents that she had previously led would put aside their worries and focus on completing the mission wholeheartedly. Yes. Yi Tianli could not help but respond. After that, he realized that he seemed to be a little obedient. One must know that he was usually arrogant because of his talent. Even the Sky Emperor did not dare to scold him when he spoke to him. Chapter 17:08. Now that he was being scolded by Imo, he didn't feel any displeasure at all. How strange. At this moment, they arrived at a relatively open area where the purple smoke was much less. They could already vaguely see the people in front of them. The monsters that jumped out of the purple smoke to attack them also stopped appearing. Everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. Not long after, they arrived at the first ceiling point. Shu and Julie left behind the weakest pair of people. The deeper they went, the more dangerous it became. Therefore, the first ones to stay behind were the weaker ones. After another round of bloody battles and killing a ground full of blood-sucking skeletons, they arrived at the second ceiling point. Just like that, one battle after another, pairs of people were left behind. The line was getting shorter and shorter. When they arrived at the sixth ceiling point, Shuilan was also left behind. He sneered and was a little unconvinced. I think they should be at the seventh ceiling point. If there were no accidents, IMO should be at the eighth ceiling point. He wanted to be closer to her, so they could take care of each other. In the face of Shui Ilan's protest, Shu and Julie only said one sentence. I have the final say here. Shui Ilan was speechless. He looked at IMO. IMO still said the same thing. Shui Ilan, the bigger picture is more important. Shui Ilan didn't say anything. He and the fairy stayed behind and watched the six people leave. They watched as IMO's figure gradually disappeared into the purple smoke. He suddenly froze and called out, Momo. He jumped up and was about to leave his position to chase after IMO. According to Shun Julie's instructions, once a team entered the ceiling point, they couldn't move as they pleased. Otherwise, the formation would shake and it might backfire. Fortunately, the Ice Jade Fairy was calm and wise. She grabbed Shui Ilan. Don't move. Along the way, this Ice Jade Fairy was like a piece of silent ice. Although she cooperated with him very well, she almost never spoke to him. She was ice cold, worthy of her title of Ice Jade Fairy. Shui Ilan was the kind of person who, except for his sweetheart, would treat all other women the same. Therefore, he didn't pay attention to his partner's appearance at all. Moreover, this Ice Jade Fairy seemed to be shrouded in a layer of mist covering half of her appearance. When she was in a crowd, her presence was extremely low. Shui Ilan did not expect that she would dare to stop him at a time like this. He frowned and almost swung his sleeve at her. But when he thought of the overall situation that made his balls ache, he endured it. He only pulled back his sleeve, glanced at Fairy Ice Jade, and coldly said, Although this king is your partner, it is only a temporary cooperation. Don't touch this king. The Ice Jade Fairy withdrew her hand and indifferently replied, If it wasn't for the bigger picture, this fairy wouldn't care about you. There is actually someone who dared to talk to him like this. Shui Ilan's pair of watery eyes fell on Fairy Ice Jade's face. Just as he was about to ridicule her, he suddenly felt that her appearance was somewhat familiar, as if he had seen her somewhere before. Shui Ilan thought about it, and a name suddenly popped into his mind. Princess Mingwan. This Ice Jade Fairy was actually 80% similar to the Princess Mingwan he met in the Tianci continent. Shui Ilan glanced at the other party again, but didn't take it to heart. There were many similar people in this world. It wasn't strange that Fairy Ice Jade and Princess Mingwan were similar. His full attention was still on Imo. He seemed to have seen bloodstains on Imo's back earlier. Chapter 1709. She couldn't have been injured, could she? He was so nervous that he couldn't help but take out the sound-transmitting talisman to ask. However, he remembered that ordinary sound-transmitting talismans were useless in this large array. There was only one sound-transmitting talisman that could be used, but it could only contact Shun Julie in one direction. Damn it! Shui Ilan clenched his fists. He didn't want to talk to Shun Julie in this life. Perhaps that was a sweat stain on Momo's body? After all, she was originally wearing a red dress. Even if there was a water stain, it would look like blood. Besides, he couldn't see anything wrong with her. Maybe he was wrong. However, Shui Ilan didn't have time to think about this problem because another wave of monsters was coming. He had to join forces with Ice Jade Fairy to fight against the enemies. This large array was like a game. The deeper they went, the more difficult it was. Not only did the path become harder, but the monsters they encountered were also more advanced. The inexplicable pressure also became heavier. Among the remaining 6 people, Gong Huanyin was the weakest. She obviously couldn't bear the pressure. Her heart seemed to jump out of her mouth, and her body trembled violently. At this moment, they were walking through a white bone tunnel. All kinds of strange bones were arranged in various strange patterns. It seemed that in the blink of an eye, they would turn into demons and pounce on them. Divine, divine Lord, Gong Huanyin couldn't help but lean her body towards Shunjuli. Swoosh! A red light rushed over and directly covered Gong Huanyin. Gong Huanyin was at her most nervous moment. She was so scared that she screamed. Her shrill scream shook people's eardrums and echoed in the white bone tunnel. "What are you screaming for?" "I'm just setting up a protective shield for you," Imo said coldly. She regretted bringing Gong Huanyin here. She was too timid and might drop the ball at a critical moment. The most important thing was that she would lose face as the Devil Master. Gong Huanyin's pretty face was pale. Only now did she see that this was a protective shield. She was still in shock. Thank you, Devil Master," she stuttered. "Shut up." Imo saw her trembling and stuttering appearance and became angrier. She couldn't help but reprimand her. Yes. Gong Huanyin shrunk even more, almost curling into a ball in the barrier. She was a pitiful little bunny type. Usually, if nothing happened, it wouldn't be obvious. However, when it came to a critical moment, a person's weakness would be exposed under fear. What kind of lousy protector did that bastard he moved fine for her? So embarrassing. Gong Huanyin, when this matter is over, you don't have to return to Mo Palace anymore. Mo didn't want this kind of little white rabbit to stay by his side. Gong Huanyin's eyes immediately widened, and her voice trembled even more. Demon Master. She was on the verge of crying, and tears rolled down from her bright eyes. Don't worry. Shunjuli, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. With a wave of his sleeve, he broke the wizardry barrier that Mo set on Gong Huanyin and set up another one for her. The pale white wizardry barrier was like a luminous pearl in the dark bone tunnel. "I will arrange a place for you." His words reassured Gong Huanyin. The place that the supreme divinity personally arranged must be the best place. It might even be better than Mo Palace. Gong Huanyin glanced at Imo and then smiled through her tears. She turned her gaze to Shunjuli. "Thank you, supreme divinity." Her voice was sweet, like a silver bell in the wind. "Let's go." Shunjuli didn't look at the people behind him with different expressions. He took the lead and walked forward. Chapter 17:10. Naturally, Gong Huanyin followed closely behind. Imo paused in place, her fingers trembling in her sleeves. Imo. Yiqianli followed the team for 2 steps and suddenly seemed to notice something wrong. He turned around and called her who was lagging behind. Imo only felt a mouthful of blood rolling around her throat. She forced herself to swallow it, and at the same time, she swallowed all kinds of indescribable emotions that were about to boil. The big picture was more important. This was her life's creed, and it was also her life's iron law. She could not affect the big picture because of her personal emotions, especially when it concerned the survival of the 6 realms. However, did she deserve to swallow this resentment just because of this? Her eyes flashed, and she secretly took a breath, then strode forward to catch up. "Divine Lord, are you trying to steal my woman?" Openly trying to steal someone in front of her, did she really think that she, the Devil Lord, was a pushover? She did not want to take this lying down, so she asked directly. If I remember correctly, the Devil Lord has already expelled her from Mo Palace. Shunjuli's eyes finally fell on her face. Imo raised her lips and smiled. I only expelled her from Mo Palace, not from the Devil Realm. Since she is still a devil, she is still my subordinate. She has nothing to do with you, Divine Lord. She slowly pulled out the sky splitter sword, and her eyes fell on Gong Huanyin again. Her voice was cold. I have a bad habit. Even if I don't want something, I will not allow others to touch it. I would rather destroy it. At this moment, the murderous aura on her body was almost overwhelming. It seemed that the next moment, the enchantment around Gong Huanyin would be split open and she would be killed in one move. Gong Huanyan was dumbfounded. Shen Juli frowned slightly and protected her behind him. Devil Lord, what are you doing? Do you think I will allow you to kill people here? Imo smiled, but the words she said were as sharp as a knife. Shun Juli, so what if you don't allow it? You want to slap me away? Or just kill me? Shun Juli's face changed, and his eyes fell on her face. His heart seemed to be suddenly twisted by something, and the mask he had been wearing almost broke. Did she really recover her memory? Or was it just a coincidence? The two words Xuan almost blurted out, but in the end, she held it back. Fortunately, his ability to remain calm was extraordinary. Even though his heart was in turmoil, his face remained calm and collected. Devil Master, please be rational. Amo brushed her sleeves lightly. Her voice was terrifyingly calm. Shun Juli, for the sake of the bigger picture, I won't kill her. But if you insist on going your own way, then don't blame me for being impolite to her. If you want to stop me, there's only one way, and that is to kill me. Or severely injure me, so that I no longer have the strength to harm others. But do you think I'll care about this damn formation after you've injured me? Shun Juli, I didn't mean to hurt you. Although he tried his best to remain calm, there was still a hint of dullness in his voice. Of course, Imo didn't listen carefully. She just raised her head and laughed, her eyes slightly sharp. Then are you still poaching people under my command? Shun Juli looked at her. They were only a few steps away, but it seemed as far as the horizon. Her personality was still the same. If she didn't have to suffer a loss, she wouldn't take it. She clearly distinguished between kindness and hatred. He looked at her with his eyes flashing slightly and said lightly, Devil Master, I only hope that you will consider the bigger picture. Since she is still a member of your devil world, I naturally won't. Gong Huanyan's face turned green this time. Chapter 17:11. Gong Huanyan's face turned green. She had already betrayed the devil clan in front of the devil master and chose the supreme divinity. If the supreme divinity always protected her, everything would be fine. She didn't need to be afraid that the devil master would kill her. But if the supreme divinity didn't care about her anymore, how could she survive after she went out? She looked at Shun Juli with tears in her eyes. Supreme divinity. Shun Juli had already turned around and ignored her. Gong Huanyan had no choice but to kneel in front of Imo. Devil Master, I know I was wrong. Please spare my life. Imo looked down at her coldly. Although this protector looked a little timid, she was quite obedient in front of her. Even if she was a little clumsy and not good with words, she looked very loyal. At that time, Imo didn't pay much attention to these subordinates, so she didn't really see through their characters. Imo originally thought that even if Gong Huanyan had countless problems, she was still loyal. What Imo did just now was purely to discipline her subordinates. How could a protector of the Devil Palace tremble like a little chick? Wasn't it shameful? If there was such a coward in her agent team in her previous life, she would probably grab her collar and scold her. She might even kick her out. But for those subordinates, even if she scolded them, they wouldn't turn around and join the other side. This was a matter of principle. She thought that she treated Gong Huanyan well in the Mo Palace, but she didn't expect her to be so unprincipled. What was the difference between her and a traitor? She was still wrong. IMO said that she couldn't stay in the Mo Palace as a protector because of Gong Huanyan's character. Such a little white rabbit wasn't suitable to be a protector at all, so it was better to put her in other places in the devil world. She didn't want to kill her or do anything to Gong Huanyan. Now that she knew the nature of this witch, she only felt it was funny. She let Gong Huanyan cow 30 to 40 times before she said lightly, Gong Huanyan, from now on, I'm no longer your devil master, and there's no such person as you in the devil world anymore. You're free. You can go anywhere you want. She glanced at Shun Juli, who was in front of her. Her voice was still indifferent as she said, Divine Lord, you can continue to protect her from now on. I won't say anything else. Shun Juli's back stiffened slightly, and Gong Huanyan was also stunned for a moment. Then, as if she had been saved from death's door, she immediately got up and stuck close to him. Divine Lord, She looked delicate and weak, as if she was begging for mercy. Shunjuli's lips twitched. She couldn't help but glance sideways at Amo, but Amo didn't look at them anymore. At this time, there were 6 of them. Shunjuli was in one group, Amo was in another, and Sky Sovereign was in another. Sky Emperor's partner was also a protector of the devil race. She had a fiery temper. In terms of real kung fu, she was stronger than Gong Huanyin, but there was a limit. After entering this place, she was a little nervous because of the terrifying aura, but she did not want to lose her composure. She had been working hard to overcome her fear and keep up with everyone's footsteps. She cooperated well with Sky Sovereign and was a trustworthy partner. Gong Huanyin's cowardly look not only made Imo feel uncomfortable, but also made her feel uncomfortable. She felt that her face was burning. On the battlefield of blood and fire, what was important was the courage to fight. Chapter 17:12. On the battlefield of blood and fire, what was needed was the spirit of daring to fight, not trembling in fear and needing protection at all times, especially when the trembling person was from her camp. Shameful, not just a little shameful. This Gong Huanyin was a guardian like her, and she often told her that the Devil Lord was a good master, as if she would die for the Devil Lord without blinking an eye. She didn't expect her to be like this at the critical moment. The fiery guardian looked at Gong Huanyin with disdain. She despised her character and said coldly, "Gong Huanyin, congratulations on finding a new master. Our friendship ends here." Gong Huanyin looked from one to the other. Then she leaned closer to Shunjuli and said, "Divine Lord, I have been expelled from the devil world. I have nothing to do with the devil world anymore. Please take me in." Her delicate body almost leaned on Shunjuli. Shunjuli stepped back quietly and said lightly, "I will arrange a place for you. Now you just need to focus on cooperating with me." Yes, Gong Huanyin was finally relieved. She wanted to take the opportunity to fight for a good opportunity for herself. "Divine Lord, after the things here are over, Huanyin is willing to enter the Fanteon Palace as a servant. As long as I can be taught by Divine Lord, Huanyin is willing to do anything." She expressed her loyalty to Shunjuli again. Her eyes were watery, and her voice was soft. When she made such an expression, she didn't know how many men she had subdued to work for her. The other female guardian of the Devil Palace felt a chill and couldn't help but curse. She didn't want to look at her anymore. She felt that she had degraded herself by associating with such a person. She was a fiery and straightforward person. If it wasn't such a moment, she would beat her up without saying anything. Now she just urged in a rough voice, "If you want to show your loyalty, go out and show it. Don't discuss people here. Are you going or not?" Shunjuli turned around and left. Gong Huanyin hurriedly followed him like a dog-skin plaster. Imo was still walking at the back. Ever since she said that she would banish Gong Huanyin from the Devil Realm, she had completely calmed down. Now, even if Gong Huanyin were to lie on top of Shunjuli, she would not frown or even blink her eyelashes. Her memory had indeed come back. She didn't expect that this extremely evil Zisha could actually break her devil's seal and restore her memory. Not long after she entered the purple evil spirit, the memories in her mind began to pop out. There was a small amount of joy in those memories, but most of it was pain worse than death. Memories rolled like the sea, hitting her until she was dizzy and disoriented. Her hands and feet were cold, and she was unable to come back to her senses for a while. She finally understood why she had used a third of her cultivation to create that seal after she was reborn on this continent. It turned out that those memories were really too painful. It was a bone-piercing pain. She, a devil master, had actually lived such a cowardly life after transforming into a human. Old memories came flooding back, and the pain of being reborn felt like it was just yesterday. It turned out that she had such a deep entanglement with that divine master. It turned out that she had once risked her life to love someone. She knew that she had always wanted to be strong. As long as she was alive, She wanted to live a wonderful life and live herself. No matter what difficulties she encountered, she would fight for a way out. But one day, she was tortured by this relationship and wanted to die. She was so cowardly that she could only take revenge on him by dying in his hands. Chapter 17:13. She loved him so much that she went crazy. After being raped by him, she waited for him for 10 days just to get an explanation. But what did she get in return? What awaited him was another assassination attempt from Wu Mo. It was a battle of life and death. She couldn't go easy on him, so she killed Wu Mo. However, she angered him when he just returned. He didn't listen to her explanation and locked her up in the ice purgatory without saying a word. In the ice purgatory, she was so cold that she wished she was dead, but he never came to see her. Even if it was just a glance, it would be good. She had waited so long for him to come, but he was here to execute her. He didn't care about her fear and threw her into the medicinal soup. He boiled her alive for a few hours and let her taste the feeling of being in a pot of oil again and again. She still trembled when she thought about the despair and horror of being in a pot of oil. If Shuailan didn't come to save her, perhaps she would have disappeared. She was disheartened in the demon realm. However, he spread the news that he expelled her from his sect and no longer recognized her. He completely cut off all ties with her. At that time, she hated herself. She hated herself for not being able to let go. He had already treated her so badly, but she still couldn't let go of him. Every day, when she closed her eyes, she was still him. Some feelings couldn't be completely let go of just by thinking rationally. Every day, her emotions and rationality were in a tug of war. She was exhausted and almost went crazy. She tried her best to walk out and forget him. That was why she wanted to try again with her previous lover, Shuailan. She wanted to see if she could find the feeling again. If she could find the feeling, she would be redeemed and wouldn't have to think about that person anymore. At that time, she really wanted to try again with Shuailan. She thought that since she could fall in love with him in her previous life, there was no reason why she couldn't fall in love with him in this life. She didn't expect herself to be so stubborn that she would be dead set on loving someone. She also didn't expect that the memories Shuailan gave her were fake. It turned out that he was also lying to her. In the banished land, she got the real memories of her previous life. Only then did she understand who she loved in her previous life. She also understood that Shunjuli really loved her in her previous life. In her previous life, even though she had done countless things to revive him, she was still the one who had wronged him first. Therefore, she didn't want to continue like this. She wanted to go back and explain to him. At the same time, she also wanted to hear his explanation. She wanted to know why he treated her like that. Subconsciously, she wanted to get back together with him. She wanted to be with him again. Who would have thought that he would get lost in space and return to his former country? She had risked her life to come back, only to receive news that he was going to be engaged to Lizine. He treated Lizine so well that the entire Tianci continent was talking about it. She didn't believe it and personally went over to take a look. In his bedroom, she saw a small side chamber prepared for Lizine. She did not give up and personally went to the engagement ceremony. She wanted to hear from him personally. She wanted to know if he had really had a change of heart and if he had truly fallen in love with Lizine. If he really had a change of heart and fell in love with Lizine, she had her pride too. She would let go of him, even if she was pregnant with his child. In the end, all she got from him was, "It has nothing to do with you." He watched as she was humiliated by Lizine without doing anything. He watched as she left and didn't ask her to stay. Then she saw him block the lightning tribulation for Lizine at the foot of the mountain. She saw Lizine snuggling under his protection like a little bird. At that moment, her mind was blank. She finally understood that she had completely lost this love and could never get it back. Chapter 17:14. At that time, she did not hate Shunjuli. She only hated the god of creation for playing tricks on her. She hated herself for being unlucky. Therefore, she only wanted to take the child away. The child in her womb was her only support. She did not expect that God would take away her last support. Lu Xing killed her child and almost made her lose her mind completely. However, the moment he arrived, he indiscriminately sent her flying. Then, he carried Lu Xing and left, leaving her bleeding profusely to fend for herself. At that moment, she only felt that her life was a joke. That kind of pain that was worse than death made her want to die. At that time, she had never lived such a cowardly life. Someone else killed her baby, and she did not even have the ability to kill the person to avenge the child. That person was under the protection of Shun Jiuli, and she was Shun Jiuli's fiancée. For the first time in her life, she hated Shun Jiuli to the bone. She did not know why Shun Jiuli healed her. Perhaps he still had feelings for her. Or perhaps he pitied her when he found out that she had lost the child. None of these were important to her at that time. What was important was that she wanted to avenge the child. She wanted to take revenge on Shun Jiuli. Now that she thought about it, her revenge was useless. She used her own death to take revenge on him. She still remembered the moment before the catastrophe. She was so desperate that she could not breathe. She only wanted to be free. She did not expect that she would come back to life, and she did not expect that she would be the Devil Master. As Ning Xiuema, her life was too painful and useless. Therefore, she did not hesitate to use 1/3 of her magic to completely erase the part about Ning Xiuema. She was in a daze in front of a stone in the purple evil array for a long time. Her face was pale as she tried to organize these memories, trying to straighten them out one by one. She did not expect that Shun Jiuli could still find her here and bring the child to pester her. Since the memory of Ning Xiuema was restored, she naturally began to doubt the identity of little Nianma. She knew that Shun Jiuli was a god. There was nothing he couldn't do. Perhaps he finally found out that the child was his after her death. He finally found out that Lu Xing was the one who harmed their child. Out of guilt, he gathered the child's soul and used divine spells to revive him. He even kept him in Yuar Rock. He desperately wanted to reconcile with her. He did not hesitate to lower himself in her palace and listen to everything she said. Firstly, he felt guilty towards Ning Xiuema. Secondly, he wanted to find his real mother for Nianma. The moment she regained her memories, countless thoughts and emotions came one after another, causing her mind to be in a mess. She almost couldn't walk out of the purple fiend array. When she was observing the purple fiend formation, she could faintly sense how powerful the purple fiend was. She was afraid that it would be a catastrophe for the 6 realms. She knew that this was not the time to think about personal feelings, nor was it the time to find out who was right and who was wrong in the past. Therefore, she forced herself to suppress her chaotic emotions and finally broke out of the purple evil array. Before she could find her footing, she heard the conversation between him and Shun Nianma. As expected, he did it for the sake of the child. After going through so much, she could no longer trust Shun Jiuli's feelings. She did not want to think about her feelings for him now. After she regained her memories, although she did not show anything on the surface, her heart was like boiling oil. This kind of emotion was inseparable and confusing, so she simply stopped thinking about it. Chapter 17:15. When a relationship couldn't be sorted out, it was better to put it aside for the time being and think about it carefully after completely calming down. What's more, the most important thing now was to reseal the purple demon. Everything else should make way for this matter. When she broke into the purple demon formation alone, because of the recovery of her memory, she was distracted for a moment and was attacked by the evil beasts inside. Her back was injured. If she wasn't a devil lord with powerful skills and a natural resistance to evil aura, she was afraid that she would really die inside and never be able to come out again. She had already treated the injury herself and used magic to cover it up. That was why she could act as if nothing had happened. However, she still underestimated the power of the evil beasts in the purple demon formation. After she came out, she felt a piercing pain in her back and her legs were a little weak. In addition, she had just recovered her memory and her mind was uneasy. Then, she heard the conversation between the father and son, All of these made her hands and feet feel cold. She really wanted to find a place to lean on. Fortunately, Shwe Elan came in time. When she followed Shwe Elan down, first, she wanted to rest and recover her strength. Second, she also silently used her mental power to heal herself and make her pain less painful. If she had a good rest and recuperated for 2 or 3 days, she might be able to completely recover. But she didn't have the time. After she followed everyone into this formation, she experienced one battle after another. She had a tough personality and didn't want to drag the team down. Although she didn't show anything on the surface, the injury on her back made it harder and harder for her to ignore. She had been quietly using the magic power in her body to expel the poison while walking, but the effect was not great. She felt as if there were countless small knives digging into her wound, making her heart burn with anxiety. There were faint signs of pain in the pit of her stomach, like the precursor of a chronic disease that was about to break out. She tried her best to suppress it. According to her previous experience, after this kind of precursor, the real outbreak would take place one day later. As long as they moved a little faster, it wouldn't be too late for her to go back into seclusion after they finished sealing this place. Everyone had started to move forward again. Even if this group of people had different thoughts for the same purpose, they had to stick together and persevere. Along the way, Imo didn't say a word, as if he was mute. Gong Huanyin, on the other hand, was in a good mood because she finally had the protection of the divine venerable. She would talk to Shun Julie from time to time, which finally made Shun Julie impatient. I don't like talkative people. His words finally shut Gong Huanyin up. She didn't dare to say anything more. Everyone's ears became much quieter. There were even more ambushes along the way, but they were all dealt with by the few of them. Except for Shun Julie's team, the other 2 teams had a tacit understanding with each other. Finally, they arrived at the 7th sealing point, and the Celestial Thearcha's group stayed behind. Watching the 4 people walk into the depths of the purple smoke again, the Witch Protector frowned slightly, because she keenly noticed that their Devil Lord's walking posture was slightly strange, and his body seemed to be a little stiff. Gong Yuing, I didn't expect you to be able to cooperate with me so well, Sky Emperor said beside her. The Protector's name was Gong Yuing. She said faintly, Your Majesty cooperated well too. Sky Emperor admired her a little. Normally, witches would be a little nervous and scared when they saw him, but this Gong Yuing didn't seem to have any psychological pressure when she was his partner. She was good at advancing and retreating, and her movements were fast and nimble. She didn't need him to take care of her at all. What was even rarer was that she had a fiery temper, which was comparable to her master. Chapter 17:16. This kind of girl was very attractive. Although there were many women around the Sky Emperor, none of them were like her. Especially when she cooperated with him in a fight, their cooperation was flawless, and they could exert twice the power. If he could pull her to his side, Yuang, I admire you very much. You don't have much of a future in Mo Palace as a protector. After all, you're just a servant. Why don't you come back to the heavenly court with me after this matter is over? I can make you concubine, Yuang. The Sky Emperor thought that the other party would be happy with his generous offer. Even if she didn't agree immediately, it was still a girl's shyness and modesty. That Gong Huanyin didn't hesitate to be a servant in order to stay by the Supreme Divinity's side. As the Supreme Divinity of the celestial world, making her his concubine was already like a pie falling from the sky, right? Once she agreed, it would be like reaching the heavens in a single step. Moreover, he was so handsome. Even if he couldn't be compared to Shunjuli, he was still a top figure. There were countless female deities in the heavens who wanted to marry him as his concubine. Therefore, the Sky Emperor was 100% sure that she would agree. Unexpectedly, just as he finished speaking, Gong Yuang interrupted him rudely. Your Majesty, narcissism is a kind of illness. It needs to be treated. The Sky Emperor, Shun Julie, and the other 3 continued to move forward. The road ahead is the most difficult. Everyone should be careful. Shun Julie, who was walking at the front, said, Yes, Supreme Divinity. Gong Huanyin was the first to agree. Understood. We will be careful. Yi Tianli also replied in a low voice. Imo didn't say anything. She didn't speak again along the way. Shen and Julie intentionally or unintentionally brought up a few topics. The others responded enthusiastically, but she didn't respond at all. It was the same this time. Shen and Julie paused for a moment and gave up. He couldn't help but look at her once. He saw that her expression was calm and unperturbed. In addition, the light was dim, so he couldn't see her face clearly. Fortunately, every time she was attacked, her moves were clean and efficient. She also cooperated with Yi Tianli better. Suddenly, a cliff appeared in front of him. This cliff was extremely narrow and long, only half a foot wide, but it was at least several thousand meters long. Through the purple smoke, he could only see that it was like a snake with only its back exposed, wriggling into the distance, with no end in sight. There were bottomless cliffs on both sides, and there was a faint red light flashing at the bottom of the cliffs. Below is the red lotus karmic fire that can burn everything. When you reach the top of the cliff, you will be attacked by the nether eagle. The nether eagle is born in the red lotus karmic fire. Its special characteristic is that it can attack with water spells. Once we pass this cliff, we will reach the 8th seal. Shen and Julie quickly explained what they needed to pay attention to. Gong Huanyin's pretty face turned pale. She agreed quickly, but in her heart, she was planning to stick close to the Divine Lord. The Divine Lord would protect her if she was in danger. Yi Tianli, you'll bring up the rear this time, Shen and Julie spoke again. At this point, everyone was used to following his orders, so Yi Tianli did not ask why. On the contrary, he was relieved. No matter what, he was still a man. He felt bad letting a woman bring up the rear, even if the woman was the Devil Lord. He went to the back of Imo. However, Imo's body stiffened slightly. When she was at the back, no one would notice the injury on her back, so she could cast spells on her back less frequently. Now, her clothes on her back might be stained with some blood. Chapter 17:17. Imo, is your back injured? Why are the bloodstains? Yi Tianli was very attentive and soon found something wrong with her back. At this moment, they had already walked up the cliff. The cliff was blood red and sticky, as if it was soaked in blood. The air was filled with the smell of blood. Shen and Julie, who was walking in front, paused for a moment. Gong Huanyin suddenly said softly, "The Devil Master. The Devil Master will not be injured. The blood on her body is probably from the monster's blood." Yi Tianli thought about it and agreed. They had killed a lot of monsters just now, and Imo was the main force in killing the monsters. It was not strange that she would be stained with blood. However, he remembered that Imo always loved cleanliness. She could not tolerate any stains on her body. She was also the demon master. Even if she killed monsters, she would not be stained with dust. Imo? Yi Tianli was still worried. "I'm fine." Imo finally opened her golden mouth. Her voice was light, and no one could hear anything. Yi Tianli still wanted to say something. Suddenly, a red light flashed in the rolling purple fog and flew towards the four of them. Dark Eagle, the most evil type of eagle in the demon god continent. It was said that it was an evil spirit that could not be freed from the river of forgetfulness in the underworld. It had 8 heads and 16 claws. It also had 8 pairs of wings. When it flew, it looked like a spinning windmill. Its 8 pairs of eyes were all blood red. It looked strange and made people shudder. The biggest characteristic of this type of eagle was that it had 8 lives. If you want to kill it, you have to cut off its 8 heads. Its mouth and claws, which were as sharp as a machete, were blood red in color. Every time it attacked, it looked like a flying guillotine. Its whole body was highly poisonous. Even if it touched a feather, it could be poisoned. What was even more troublesome was that it could hide. It flew silently. When it was discovered, it had already attacked. Encountering one of these things was enough to give people a headache. Yi Tianli had encountered one of these things when he was adventuring elsewhere. It took him a lot of effort to kill it. He was so tired that he almost got injured. At that time, he was still in his prime. Now, he was still half crippled. What's more, this time he encountered a group of them. There were a total of 180 of them. They were attacking them from 8 different directions. Yi Qianli did not have the time to ask about Mo's injury. He focused on fighting the enemy with Mo back-to-back. Yi Qianli did not truly understand Mo's kung fu until he met a strong opponent. It was only at this moment that he realized how powerful the Devil Lord's kung fu was. The sword flashed out like lightning, and the crimson light flickered like a tide, rolling between heaven and earth. Wherever the sword light passed, the attacking dark eagles were all twisted into her crimson light. In just a few moments, 8 heads of a dark eagle had fallen. Yi Qianli's mission was to protect her from a back. Once she was done with the front, she would switch places with him to deal with the back. It was as if the air was being torn apart and filled with the miserable cries of the dark eagles. When the dark eagles were killed, their bodies would explode, and their poisonous blood sprinkled down like purple rain. That blood was extremely poisonous and could corrode everything. Because he had to fight with the other nether eagles and couldn't set up a defensive barrier, the only way to resist this purple blood was to use sword light to protect his entire body. Because Mo was the one who killed most of the dark eagles that attacked his team, the purple blood rain basically flew towards her. Chapter 17-18. Because the dark eagles that attacked his team were basically killed by Mo, the purple blood rain basically flew towards her. With her blocking most of the purple rain attack, Yi Qianli only needed to protect the rear. Yi Qianli also glanced at Shun Juli's team in the midst of his busy work, and the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. That team of Gong Huanyan was just an extra, a free gift. She could not resist anything at all, and could only shrink beside Shun Juli. Shun Juli took care of 2 directions by himself, and also had to guard against his delicate companion falling down. It seemed that he was having a hard time. Gong Huanyan's body was covered by Shun Juli's enchantment. She only needed to stay by his side obediently and not let the dark eagles break the enchantment. The only thing that gave her a headache was the eyes of those dark eagles. As long as she met those eyes, she would feel extremely terrified. Her legs trembled violently, and there were several times when she almost slipped down half a foot wide. When she saw the dark hawk attack, she couldn't help but scream. That scream was too shrill, causing Yi Qianli to tremble in fear. Later, she did not know if she controlled herself or was controlled by someone else, but she did not scream again. Only her eyes were wide open. There were several times when she wanted to grab Shun Juli's robe to seek protection, but she did not know what was going on. She could not touch the person who was clearly beside her. This time, dealing with the Dark Eagle's attack mainly relied on Shun Juli and Mo. The white and red light crisscrossed between heaven and earth, looking beautiful and cruel. Due to the frequent changes in their positions, Shun Juli and Mo would occasionally bump into each other. Sometimes, Shun Juli's hand would even touch hers. Since entering this large array, the 2 of them were in the front and the back. Although they were in the same team, the distance between them had always been very far. It was only at this moment that they occasionally got so close and even touched skin occasionally. Every time they touched each other, Mo would retract his hand without batting an eyelid. They did not even feel the temperature of each other's skin and had already separated at lightning speed. Sometimes, Shun Juli would take care of the nether eagles that were attacking Mo. When the nether eagles exploded and their purple blood splattered down, his sword light would flash and protect Mo. However, Mo didn't seem to like owing him a favor. If he helped her kill a dark eagle, she would also help him kill one. If he protected her once, she would also protect him once. No matter how strenuous it was, she would still do it. Obviously, she didn't want to owe him any more favors. Occasionally, their gazes would meet, and Mo would quietly look away. Occasionally, she could feel his gaze on her face. She could not see his gaze clearly, or perhaps she did not want to see it clearly, but her keen sixth sense made it impossible for her to ignore his gaze. She vaguely felt as if he was suppressing something in his gaze, or was it just her imagination? At this moment of life and death, she didn't want to think too much. She forcefully suppressed all her chaotic emotions into the depths of her heart. She only wanted to kill Dark Eagle. There were too many indescribable emotions in her heart, and she also wanted to find a channel to vent them. Killing the Dark Eagle became a channel for her to vent. After recovering Ning Xiuma's memories, her eyes would turn black from time to time, but at this moment they were completely red, as transparent as the setting sun, and the devil aura on her body was fully released. Among the four of them, Gong Huanyin was the most relaxed, so she had the most free time. Occasionally, she would turn to Mo's direction. Chapter 17-19. Gong Huanyin trembled when she saw her eyes, her agile and bloodthirsty skills, as well as the strong pressure of the Devil Lord. She couldn't help but want to kneel down. Whenever she was nervous, she would slip and almost fell off the narrow cliff several times. If it weren't for Shun Julie pulling her back in time, she would have already fallen to the Red Lotus Hellfire. Shun Julie would be slightly distracted if he wanted to save her. After all, they were on the same boat now. No matter how useless this former subordinate was, IMO couldn't let her become a burden frequently. So when she changed positions, she tried to choose the right time to avoid facing Gong Huanyin. Even if she had no choice, she would try to retract the Devil Lord's coercion, lest Gong Huanyin's legs go soft. Once the Devil Lord's coercion was fully released, it had a great deterrent effect on those Netherworld Eagles. It would also slow down their attacks slightly, making it easier for IMO to attack. When she retracted the Devil Lord's coercion in consideration of Gong Huanyin's emotions, those Netherworld Eagles would suddenly speed up, and it would be more difficult for her to deal with them. Shunjili obviously also discovered this very quickly, so when Amo turned around, he would also try to change positions with Gong Huanyin to reduce the pressure on Amo. In this way, the two had more opportunities to face each other. Although neither of them said anything, after fighting for a while, they had a tacit understanding with each other. Red and white light intertwined and danced, like a dual-colored flower blooming in the dark night. Gong Huanyin was not just ashamed. At such a critical moment, her incompetence was simply like a joke. Not only could she not help at all, but she also became a burden. Although no one said anything about her, her face was burning. She could even read the word contempt from Yi Tianli's eyes. As for IMO, since she was expelled from the Devil Realm, she never looked at her again. Whether she screamed or trembled in fear, IMO didn't respond and completely ignored her. But when the shame reached the extreme, it would turn into anger, and even jealousy would crawl up to the surface. They were both women. Why was IMO the Devil Lord? Why could she be the center of attention? And she, who had cultivated for 2,000 or 3,000 years, was simply like a waste in front of this Devil Lord. Becoming a joke, Gong Huanyin had been IMO's protector for more than a year. Although IMO did not let protectors accompany him often, protectors could still move around freely in MO Palace. Therefore, when Yi Tianli and Shun Julie stayed in MO Palace, some of their actions still fell into her eyes. She knew that these two most outstanding men were once fascinated by the Devil Lord and spared no effort in pursuing her. Gong Huanyin was also a woman, but she, Gong Huanyin, was trying her best to compete for the position of a servant in front of the supreme divinity. On what basis? Why was God so unfair? Give the best things to that woman. That's how a person is. That's how a man is. Moreover, she didn't even dare to fart in front of her. Just being stared at by her made him want to kneel down. Once jealousy rose in a person's heart, all the kindness that the other party had shown him in the past would be thrown away. She had forgotten that IMO had once taught her martial arts, forgotten that IMO had once saved her life, forgotten that IMO had once treated her internal injuries. Her heart was filled with indignation, especially when she noticed that the supreme divinity beside her deliberately went against IMO. The indignation and dissatisfaction rose to the peak. Chapter 17-20. She began to cause trouble intentionally or unintentionally. For example, when Julie changed positions with her, she deliberately slowed down her movements so that Julie could not grasp the exact timing. Of course, she was more timid and did not dare to play too many tricks in front of an expert, so as to avoid being seen through. Therefore, she only quietly caused trouble in a small range that no one could see through. IMO, Julie, and Yi Tianli's attention were all on the Dark Eagle, so no one had the time to care about her. Gong Huanyin only caused a little trouble, but it was not enough to delay Julie. Moreover, he quickly grasped her rhythm and pattern. When he changed positions again, he would advance and grasp the timing extremely accurately. Every time, he would land almost at the same time as a MO, obviously. This divine venerable was always paying attention to the Devil Lord's movements even in such a fierce battle. The jealousy in Gong Huanyin's heart was about to break through the sky. When jealousy filled her heart, she forgot her fear and gave birth to courage. She also wanted to make a move. She also wanted to let the divine venerable see that she was not a good-for-nothing. At this time, the Dark Eagles that came to attack had been killed, and only 3 were left. 2 of them were intercepted by Julie and Imo, and they were fighting each other. The other one probably saw that Gong Huanyin, this soft persimmon, was the easiest to pinch and swoop down on her. The iron claws and blood hooks were right in front of her. If she did not make a move, this Dark Eagle would not be able to break the enchantment around her in a hurry. The Dark Eagle that attacked Julie had already had 6 heads cut off, and it would be finished off in a moment. Julie had enough opportunity to kill that Dark Eagle and then deal with this one. In order to show her ability, Gong Huanyin steeled her heart and directly pierced the enchantment that protected her. A green sword light slashed towards one of the Dark Eagle's heads. The enchantment that Julie set up for her blocked the outside, but not the inside, so she easily broke it. This sword slash was quite powerful. It could be considered as condensing all the essence of her power. When she was inside the barrier, she saw Imo and Julie cutting the Dark Eagle's head like cutting tofu. She thought that this Dark Eagle was just SOSO. But once she made a move herself, she realized that it was far from the truth. As soon as the protective barrier around her was broken, she immediately felt the sweet and fishy hurricane of the Netherworld Hawk's attack. The hurricane seemed to want to tear apart a person's skin, causing her to be unable to open her eyes as soon as she left the barrier. Even the thrust of his sword was deflected. In the blink of an eye, the Nether Hawk's blood-red claws had arrived before her eyes. That Nether Eagle is very big. Even one of its claws is the size of a small round table. Its 5 sharp claws are like 5 blood-red scimitars, piercing towards Gong Huanyin. Gong Huanyin screamed in fright. The Netherworld Eagle was too fast for her to dodge. She closed her eyes in fright. Idiot! Imo happened to be on her side. When she saw this scene, she couldn't help but curse. In this critical moment, she didn't have time to think carefully. She lifted her sleeve and pulled Gong Huanyin in her direction. Gong Huanyin couldn't stand still and fell at her feet with a plop. The moment Gong Huanyin fell to the ground, Imo suddenly waved her sword and took advantage of the opportunity to cut off one of the Dark Eagle's heads. That Dark Eagle immediately turned around to attack Imo. Imo had just finished off another Dark Eagle and didn't even have time to catch her breath. Seeing this Dark Eagle attacking again, she didn't have time to think. She raised her sword and was about to stab a second time when she suddenly felt a sharp pain in her chest. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.